Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
So, what's your name?
My name is Krystl Tyler. This is William Tyler, my husband, and Leah Tyler, my daughter.
Hello. So, I just want to ask you a couple of questions. Where are you guys from?
We're from Denver, Colorado.
Okay. And you guys flew in. You drove up to.
We drove in from Denver to Ferguson. We got here last night.
Okay. And there is a book that you recommend that people read.
Okay. So there's two books. And one of them is a book about our family. It's called The Wheat Money. Mm-hmm. And it's about all the ways that my family benefited from racism. And so when we met, he was homeless and had a felony record. Mm-hmm. And I had a master's degree and a great job and all this stuff. And I moved into his downtown neighborhood. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I started looking at what has happened in the last 150 years since slavery. And what happened to his family and what happened to mine. And mine was lifted up over and over and over again. And what I learned was his having a felony record was not an accident. I stumbled across a book called The New Jim Crow. It's by Michelle Alexander. So what I'm saying is every white person in America needs to read my book. Mm-hmm. And
what's the name of your book
it's
again?
Called The Wheat Money.
Okay.
You can go to my website, thewheatmoney.com.
Okay.
White people need to read that because unless you already know the real racist history of this country. Mm-hmm. And if you're black, you don't need to read a book to find out the real racist. I mean, you're living it every day.
Right.
So if you're black, you need to look into the New Jim Crow. Go to her website. It's called newjimcrow.com.
Perfect.
And then there's something called endnewjimcrow.com.
Perfect.
Because the war on drugs was designed to make sure that he had a felony record so that he cannot move up in society. He can't get education benefits. My parents paid for my college free, right? Mm-hmm. Because of some wheat land that we got free from the government. Mm-hmm. His family couldn't pay for him to go to college. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't get the benefit of going to college because once he was a felon, he could not get money from the government. That's the way it was designed.
Right.
So read Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. It will blow your mind. Let me say one more thing. Stop and frisk is illegal. The Fourth Amendment to the Constitution makes stop and frisk illegal. And we somehow decided that it was okay to stop and frisk black, especially young black men. That's the way that we turn them into felons. So you got to read that book. And I'm really hoping that we can get these young guys interested in ending stop and frisk here in Ferguson, and then let it ripple out across the country.
Absolutely.
It's illegal, and it always has been.
Absolutely. I'm going to make this public, so do I have your permission?
Please
okay.
do.
Oh.
Love call you a one in a million you. A one in a million chance of a lifetime, and life show compassion and send to me a stroke of love. Call you one in a million you. A one in a million you.
Context of White Supremacy, Justice Gus T Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of racism, white supremacy. We were late getting out of the starting gates 2 days in a row. Today's date, Tuesday, September 23rd, 2014. So I have been told. Lots of similarities between the broadcast that we had yesterday with Debbie Irving, admitted racist. You should compare and contrast these two programs for folks who were not able to hear that program live. I know there were some issues. There were some slight issues beyond my control. I think it was affecting a lot of people on the network, but it should be taken care of now. The archive is up. You should be able to access it however you normally listen to the program. If you listen to the archives, it should be in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever else you download or listen online to stream from it, but it should be available. And she had some that was actually Debbie Irving for folks who were listening live while we were waiting to get started, the audio segment where the white woman called in talking about being afraid of being the only white person amongst a group of black people. At any rate, one of our listeners informed me about the book that we are going to discuss today. They thought it would be grand to hear a white person speaking about racism. I will read you kind of what's at the beginning of the text to set the stage in the text that we're going to talk about. The author, who is a white woman, she's married to a black male, and this is kind of how she starts the book off that we're going to discuss today. She writes, "When I met my husband in 2005, I had a master's degree, a high-paying job, no dependent children, a modern, reliable vehicle, and I had just purchased a home. He, her husband, on the other hand, was a homeless crack addict with a long felony record. I knew about the homelessness and that he'd come out of prison about a year before, but I didn't suspect the crack addiction, and I didn't fully understand the weight of his rap sheet." That's kind of at the beginning, and then she goes from there to give a narrative of about the last roughly 150, 160 years of racism, white supremacy in the U.S., and how things played out for her white family, how things played out for her black husband, his family, through that last roughly 150 years or so, with regards to racism that resulted in them being in such diametrically opposite places in late 90s, early 2000s when they met and got married. The book that we will be discussing, The Wheat Money, and that's WHEAT, The Wheat Money, 1865 to 2015. You can check it out. It's available online. Very interesting information. We'll try and read a few excerpts and get her thoughts. Interesting take on the system of racism, white supremacy. She describes herself. She lives in rural Colorado with her daughter and her husband in an effort to continue growing as a good human being, in italics. She reads everything Ta-Nehisi Coates writes, watches Melissa Harris Perry religiously, and is subscribed to the blog of Abagond as well as the websites Color Lines and Color of Change. Should be an interesting discussion. We are thankful to have her on the broadcast with us this evening. Joining us live, Miss Krystl Tyler. Miss Tyler, are you with us?
Yeah, I am. Hi. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Right on. Thank you for sharing a bit of your time with us this evening. For folks who are not familiar with your work, maybe they haven't read The Wheat Money yet, anything that you think listeners that it would be helpful for them to know about you before we get started?
Sure. The about the author that you just read about Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I kind of envisioned that as when white people. So what I say in the intro is the book is for white people. So the about the author is also for white people, and it's trying to give them some things that they can subscribe to, so that they can stay informed. I feel like Melissa Harris Perry does a good job. I feel like Ta-Nehisi Coates does a really good job. And I just felt like, okay, they're going to be asking me, so what do I do next? And so those were for them. I have a feeling your listeners are maybe, maybe more radical, maybe more, like y'all don't need to listen to those things or watch those things. But I think I would like my audience to be exposed to those things, hopefully.
That is interesting. What do you mean by radical?
I don't know, and that's why I paused at that word. I guess, I could use a continuum of left or right. I could try to say consciousness. Oh, I guess what I'm saying is that's the least someone should do. That's the least they should do to stay informed. I think you guys are not the kind of people who need to know what is the least you can do. I think your listeners are people who are committed at a much greater level. So, y'all don't need to be told what's the least you can do. Does that help?
It provides a little bit more detail. That is
right. I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I don't love the word radical. I guess it's just the first one. Radical to me means not lukewarm. That's kind of a biblical phrase, which is kind of gross to me. But I mean, y'all are, I guess, hardcore, serious, not pedestrian about this. I mean, people who tune into your show, I've been accused of thinking about race too much. And I don't think y'all would be somebody who accused me of that. You know what I'm saying?
I'm trying, but I would just point out for our listeners, I don't want to bog down on this because I want to make sure we have time for your book
exactly,
to cover as much as we can. But
yeah.
Just for our listeners, that word, I would pay attention and I would encourage people to ask because I found that word radical, I think even I've heard people refer to the quote-unquote terrorist organization ISIS as radical.
No.
And I'm not saying that you imply that, but that's why I would encourage asking, what do you mean when you say radical when people use that term?
Sure.
At any rate, you said that you are a white woman, correct?
Right.
Okay. We start out every program discussing racism.
Correct.
I think definitions very important. You said you've listened to the program before. Our definition for racism and white supremacy use the terms as synonyms. The definition I use is as follows. A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you think such a system exists? Do you think that's an accurate definition?
I think the system exists. I have issues with your definition.
Is there?
I know I'm not the first person.
For sure. Is there anything incorrect about the definition?
I don't like the word dedicated. I think a whole bunch of white people are coasting. I know lots of white people, and I've heard you say before that you don't believe that they are ignorant of the system. I believe that white people are, they are so arrogant that, okay, we can't say that because I am white. I know many, many white people who believe that they are so amazing that they don't need racism. So whether they participate in it, I believe there is ignorance. I don't believe they are. I wouldn't use the word dedicated because they're coasting. So you're not going to get me to agree with you on that definition. I know how you feel about it. You say you either have to say yes or no, and I say no. I don't agree with your definition.
Great. That's fine. We're not in the business of trying to make people agree with anything that I say. You give your view. If you don't agree, that's fine. I do not agree with everything you say in your book, so that's great. That's the purpose of having an exchange. What's your definition for racism?
Absolutely. Gosh, I didn't know you were going to ask me this. Can we go through your definition one more time?
A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white.
Okay, so I would say there is no question that people who call themselves white that some people who classify themselves white have gone out of their way to find ways to subjugate people who are not white for their own gain. Absolutely, there are people who have, and the record of whites as a group is something that I believe people say, okay, yeah, I'm going far afield. I know you want me to stick to the definition part of this. I agree with a lot of your definition. I guess my only thing that I would say is it is not all white people. There are different kinds of white people. But yes, there has been a concerted effort of white people to globally subjugate people who they classify as non-white. No question. Is that good enough?
Not for me. That still is not really a clear definition for racism, particularly since you said that you don't think mine is accurate, even though you said you agree with, I guess, much of it. I would, and particularly since you've written a book about this, I would generally expect if the person is an author on a subject that they would have a clear definition of what they mean when they're going to talk about a concept. I guess So what I would say is my book is not, I'm not a global, like I'm not an expert on racism. What I'm an expert on is my family, my husband's family, and other books that I have lined up to illustrate for people and hopefully get them interested in reading those other books. But no, I'm not an expert on racism at all. Okay. I will say this. When I started writing the book, I thought racism was much more about hurt feelings. And now I understand that it is much more about economics and justice. And so I get it now. Like, I heard your clip of her talking about being in a room. Oh, my God. Yeah, I probably sounded like, I don't think I ever sounded that dumb. But I was naive. And you know, you read the story. I thought that me just smiling at people was like a gift to them, which is, yeah, 1 in a million, chance of a lifetime. Oh, I'm so great. Yeah, I thought that just me being kind to black people was such an amazing, great thing I was doing. And I understand now. Oh, my God. Black people don't care if I'm their friend. They just want justice. They want to be able to get jobs. They want to be able to feed their families. They do not care about white girls like me being like, hi, do you have any friends? Oh, my God, do you want to go out later? No, that is not solving racism. Me sitting in a room of black people, first of all, is not doing anything to change racism. So I don't know. How many, I just wanted to get in quickly. How many books did you read approximately in putting this book together, and how long did it take you to complete this book? I
started the book in January of 2011.
Okay.
And I wrote and wrote and read and wrote and read and wrote and just
do you have an
one book will lead me to another, probably 20, probably. No, that's not how many I read so much as that's probably how many I quoted.
Oh, okay.
While I was, so I used 20 different books probably that I say, you know, this person writing in this book said this about the 1940s. Or, yeah, I mean, you know, because you read the book. You know that I quoted from Isabel Wilkerson's Wanted Brother Sons, which is a phenomenal book that really exposes the racism of the northern cities. When I say racism there, I'm saying the denial segregation, the denial of fair wages, the denial of humane working conditions, the denial of, we treated black people horrible. We rioted and killed them. It was awful. And people think it's only in the South. I thought it was only in the South. And then I read
Right.
Isabel Wilkerson.
Miss Tyler, I don't want to interrupt you because I do want to make sure you have a chance to give a full response, but I do want to try to cover as much. So I just want to try to get a quick one on this. Approximate, how many books did you read?
I think it was about 20.
Okay.
No, to read, maybe, well, I've read all my life books on racism.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, I mean, I've always been interested. You know, my mom thought she was like a good anti-racist. She did what she could, but, or what she knew how to do, I should say it that way. Okay. And, this is all I've ever cared about, I feel like. And my brother is like, well, I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. I just want listeners, before I move forward, I want to, I'm doing a little differently before I kind of get into a general synopsis of your book, and then I want to go through some of the sections that you talk about, but I'm going a little out of order because I want to start with the child rearing, because that is kind of a pretty important theme in your book, where you kind of talk about that and how that changed and how racism impacted the way that white parents could kind of raise their children, and how it had such an adverse impact on the way that black people raise their children. And since there's been so much discussion about this and corporal punishment over the last couple of weeks, I kind of want to start there and then kind of dig into your book. But I just want for listeners to just kind of hold that up. And scrutinize. We talked about this yesterday. Scrutinize what you're hearing if it makes sense. Ms. Tyler said that she is not an expert on racism, which is pretty common when I talk to white people. That we heard a lot of that yesterday. White people being ignorant, uninformed, lemmings, duped. Those were Debbie Irving's words. But you just said that you have read books on racism all your life. I would just ask listeners to hold that up, evaluate, see if it makes sense to you. With the Adrian Peterson situation, that has been talked about a lot, and kind of scrutinizing black child rearing patterns. You have a fascinating scene, right, in your book. Your husband, again, black male, you white woman. You're kind of talking about how parenting styles with your daughter. I wanted to read a chunk from the book and then kind of get you to comment and share what you've been hearing, since I feel like you write a lot about this, what you've been hearing over the past maybe 2-3 weeks around this dialogue about Adrian Peterson. For make sure people who don't know, Adrian Peterson, black male football player, he's in his 20s. He just has been not released, but they excused him from team activities. He's under a CPS investigation for child abuse. They have photographs where I guess he used to switch a tree branch or something, not a huge tree branch, but like a twig or something, to beat his child's legs. They had photographs where it looked like it left visible marks and welts on the child's legs. He's talked about it, said he's not an abuser, that, his parents did that to him, and, they got passed on. So this, I have a Kindle version, so I don't know if people have a hardback or whatever version they have. Mine is Kindle, so the pages might not correspond exactly, but I'm reading from the Kindle version. So for me, it's page 339. And so you all are talking about spanking, whether or not to do that. You say, this is you speaking to your husband. And you're talking about Steve Harvey, your husband, saying that in order to have a disciplined child, you got to spank them. And so you respond, Steve Harvey doesn't beat his kids. He talks about beating his kids. I guarantee you Steve Harvey has talked about whipping his kids 30 times more often than he's actually done it. And that's why comedy routines are poisonous. Here you have this middle-class guy talking about how he raises his kids different than white folks because white folks is crazy. Yeah, all right. But you've got parents in the audience, horrible parents, abusive parents, lazy, self-centered parents who are thinking, yeah, that's right. We're excellent parents. We beat the shit out of our kids. Our kids don't respect us without getting their ass beat. This is your husband. You don't know that. Back to you. I've seen it over and over and over, working class and welfare class parents and their horrible ideas about how to parent, and my heart has broken for those kids over and over and over. What? You saw this on TV? No, I've been around a lot of black people in my life, believe it or not. Like who? Like people you don't know. Where? Everywhere. Oh my God, you can see this kind of parenting anywhere. The bus, Walmart, the park, it's everywhere. Well, it's not just black people. You're right, it's not. but abusive white parents don't have cheerleaders who make public speeches that talk about how great it is that we all beat our kids. Yes, you do. I search my brain for a minute trying to figure out what he's talking about. Then it hits me. Right, that spare the rod kook. That spare the rod kook. So let me rephrase this then. I didn't marry a religious fanatic who's a fan of the Spare the Rod book and who uses that book to bully me into beating our daughter. Instead, I married a black guy who, when he defends his lazy parenting, sounds suspiciously like a Kings of Comedy routine. I'm talking about black people's terrible parenting that they're so proud of because you're sitting here endorsing it. Kings of Comedy, I gotta pull that up on YouTube. And I know it's our fault, white people's fault, because my ancestors beat the shit out of your ancestors. We're the ones who taught your people this technique for treating people like shit. This telling your kids, do what I say, don't ask questions, don't try to negotiate, shut up, don't expect me to praise you, don't expect to be entertained or catered to, you don't matter. Who said that? That's the message of slavery and Jim Crow. But today we have a situation of too many poor black parents conveying that message to their children. In fact, it's a chicken-egg thing. The research pretty much shows that it's not that welfare causes shitty parenting, it's that shitty parenting causes welfare dependency, and it is from Jim Crow. Researchers have already proven that parents treat their kids just like they're treated as adults in their work environment. I will stop there. You do go on a little later in the book to give an anecdote where you pretend to beat your child and your husband's response indicates that he is not in favor of this once he thinks that his child has been beaten. And that seems to, at least the impression I get from the book, that seems to squash any investment in corporal punishment. Why did you include this in the book, and how does this relate to what I assume you've been seeing some of the news that's been reported on Adrian Peterson, what you've seen and thought about what's been talked about the last couple of weeks?
Okay. So one thing that I think that people would immediately respond to is, oh my God, she thinks that she thinks that all black people parent the same. She thinks that all black people are shitty parents. And so in that scene, what you have to understand is that he had been, so what I'm trying to show y'all, what I'm trying to show in the book is how much this was a point of contention for us. We went around and around and around about this. At 12 days old, he told me she was foiled. And so I wrote that scene the way that it happened because I was very frustrated. I was sick of him. It wasn't that he was hitting our child. It was that he was telling me that I needed to hit our child. And my belief was, you do your thing, and you have your relationship with her, and I'll do mine, and I'll have my relationship with her. I never told him he couldn't hit her. But it was just constant in every place we would be. He would be talking to another black person. That child needs a whipping. Like this constant praising of whipping. And I'm not saying that you can't whip your kid. You can. But I'm worried that it has gone too far to the other side where it's always on TV where blacks are talking about how great it is to beat your kids. And all the comedians do it. And my husband is talking to every black person in public. Like every time there's a kid, he's waiting for that white kid to do something so that he can lean over and in a conspiratorial tone say, that kid needs a whipping. It's just constant. And so I, in that scene, was just super frustrated with him. Like, okay, you know what? Stop telling me how great it is because it's not always great. And if y'all don't stop, so my one thing I want to make sure that I say is, it's not my job to tell black people how to parent their kids. But this is me. I wanted to show people inside a home where you have a black and a white, and you have someone who was raised middle class to trust the research on child rearing, and someone who was raised welfare class, really. And the class differences that came into that, the race differences that come into it, It was just to give people a sense of that it was not easy for us to raise a child together. Now, in light of what's going on in the news with Adrian Peterson, I think it is despicable that they have chosen, once again, to make a black celebrity into the poster child for what's wrong with whipping your kids. If you whip your kids, there are going to be times when you overdo it. He told the mother, I overdid it, and I didn't mean to hit his nuts or something like that. So I felt like they should have kept that within the family. She had a kid with them, so she needs to work with him. That is his kid, too. I think sometimes I hear women talk as if they own the children, and it is all their decision. My mother used to say things to me about how Ty handled things. My husband goes by Ty. I call him William in the book because I was kind of trying to separate who knew his real nickname. So I'll refer to him as William. So my mother used to say things about, well, why is he doing that? And I'm like, it is his child. It is not your child. It is mine and his, and we get to decide. So my feeling is Adrian Peterson is that boy's father. He has every right to decide how he punishes that child. Yeah, it looks like he got a little carried away. He said it himself. It's not. I'm just amazed that they are trying to bring him up on. No, I'm not amazed. That's not true. I am not amazed that they are trying to bring him up on child abuse charges. To me, that seems like the same old racism that we've seen forever. You know, let's not even make it like 400 years. I think here we go again. Here we go again. Does that answer your question?
That is a sufficient response. Folks have questions on that. You can feel free to dial in as well. Sure. With your child and your parenting situation, as I said in the book, it seems that eventually it gets resolved where nobody is on board with the corporal punishment. So was your daughter, was she spanked, or did she get any sort of physical reprimand at any point, or did that not happen at all?
Yeah, so I've never told this story publicly. I didn't include it in the book, and I don't know how it's going to go over. So I'll just tell it, and we'll see what happens. So I believe in natural consequences. So I've always believed if she hit me, she would get hit back. Not necessarily in public, because that, you know, I know white people get hit by their kids in public, and black people can't believe it, that they didn't do anything. But I think there is a belief that, you know, you want to have the right time to talk to your kid about stuff. My kid was never the type to run around crazy. Never. I know what kind of white kids y'all are talking about. We've all seen it. I don't indulge my child like that at all. I use timeout. I use a count 1 to 5. She today, all I have to say is, I know you don't want me to count. And she says, no, I don't want you to count. So she's extremely well-behaved. I feel very blessed by that. If you ask my husband if she's well-behaved, he'll go on and on about, no, she's spoiled, she's terrible, whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so what happened was, believing in natural consequences, she and I were living, he was locked up because he's been locked up a number of times during our marriage. And we were playing, and she got mad at me, and she kicked me. So I said, you are not allowed to kick me. And the reason is because when you hit people, they hit you back. So I hit her. So she started to cry, and then she got this wild, I can't say wild, no, I'm going to say that's me being racist. She got this weird look in her eyes, and she hit me back. And so I hit her back, and she hit me back, and I hit her back. And I escalated. Every time I hit her back, I hit her harder. And then I realized she was never going to stop. She had an anger in her that I had never seen. She didn't get it from me. She got it from him. And I thought, if we continue this, I'm going to have to kill her. She's not going to stop hitting me back. And I don't want to have to wail on her. So I told him after that day, I don't think I can use corporal punishment on her because she doesn't get it. She doesn't get that she's a fighter, and I don't want to have to kill her. So, I don't know what else to do. Yeah, I can see him saying, you should have beat her so bad that she never hit you again. Yeah, I wasn't ready to do that. So I just said, I'm not doing that anymore because she has something in her that she's a fighter. I love that about her. I don't want to, Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about in his biography that there's a belief in the black community that you beat your child so that you teach them, his father says to his mother, if I don't do it, the police will, something to the effect of, if I don't get him under control, the police will kill him. And I think it's fine that you think that way, but Mike Brown got killed anyway. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so I'll just stop talking on that. Yes, I've hit her before. It didn't work for us. When I use timeout, I give her a 5 count. The last time that I needed to get to 5, we were with my mother. My mother has died now. It was the last birthday of my mother's that we celebrated together, and we were trying to take a family portrait, and she didn't want to be in the picture because she didn't feel like it. And I said, Leah, this is not a time where anyone cares what you feel like. Get over here and be in the picture. And she sat on the couch. And I said, do you need me to count? And she didn't say anything. I counted to 5, and she was still over there. This was like one of maybe 3 times in her life that she's ever let me get to 5. And I said, okay, you have just won 6 minutes in timeout. I'm going to count again. If you don't get over here, then you'll have 12 minutes. So I said 1. She ran over. She got in the picture because it wasn't her place to waste everybody's time. This was a very important picture, and it wasn't the time for me to come over, honey, please will you be in the picture? So then after the picture was taken, I said, okay, now you got to do your time. You got to get over there and sit for 6 minutes. You know that I love you. But when I say that you need to do something, you know that I mean it. So she went over and sat for 6 minutes. Everything was cool. And since that time, which was probably about 1.5 years ago, I have not had another problem from her. She knows that when I say, do you need me to count, that means we're through negotiating, we're through, and my husband refuses to count on the ground, and he refuses to use timeout. Why? Because it's a white thing to do. Okay, fine. I always say to him, do what you want to do. You have your own relationship with her. I don't care. So instead, he just never tells her to do anything. He leaves all, because he says that he hit her once. I think she was like 5 at the time. And then the next time he got mad at her, she said, please don't hit me, Daddy. And he said it broke his heart, and so he's never hit her since. He didn't do it because I told him not to. But, she also, there is the fact that she's a good kid, and she's at a rational age now where we can say to her, these are the consequences and blah, 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 blah. So that's...
Quickly, number one, how old is your daughter now? And for folks listening in, because I think this is extremely important, in terms of her skin complexion, if you could pick somebody that most of us would know to kind of give us an idea of what her skin color is. President Obama, darker. Sure.
Here's the thing. I have a niece. She's in college now. And what happened with her skin tone was she was kind of light until about this age, and then her color changed, and then it stayed darker. So Leah just passed over kind of that where she got darker. So she's going to be that color, I think, from now on because that's how her cousin is. Let me think. She's darker than Beyonce, but she has hair that is more like it's a loopy curl. It's about what would be wrapped around an adult thumb. That would be her curl grade. I don't know the name of it. So it's obvious to people that she is a black child. She has fairly full lips, and she has a broad nose. Not excessively so. I think she's gorgeous. But I know that she has ebony eyes, and I know that people know that she's black, and I love that. And I tell her...
Do people think that or do people suspect that she has a white parent?
It's real funny, because when I'm around her, I think they do, but when I'm around her at school, it seems like kids are always saying, "Is that your mom?" Like, black kids are always saying, "Is that your mom?" Like they thought she was black. And she's always like, "Yeah," and then I'll make a joke. Yeah. Anyway, so.
And how old is she now?
She's 8.
8. Oh, okay.
Third grade.
Okay.
It's a great age. I love it.
Okay. This is an aspect that we talk about a lot, and it's a dominant theme of your book. So hopefully you will indulge me. Maybe people can take it as a plug for the book, what's in there. We talk about sexual intercourse between white people and non-white people on a pretty regular basis, and you had lots of just fascinating statements in the book on this subject matter. I
don't like when you say fascinating.
A few of them and get your response. I would just encourage folks, if you've been listening to the cows for a while, just put your feet up, sit back, and enjoy. This is all from the Wheat Money, so if you want a book to kind of read and get a white person's perspective on this. So, and again, I have the Kindle, so if you got a hard copy, you might have to make adjustments to match up with where it is in the book. So this is on, for me, 263, where you're talking about being in high school in Texas. Pause for Alfred Wright. Being in high school in Texas, and you were doing a lot of quote-unquote dating of black guys in high school, kind of breaking the barrier in that sense. So you write, you're with your, I guess, clique of friends or what have you, and there was some dating of black basketball players or athletes at the high school level. And some of your girlfriends in this group are talking amongst themselves about how they're going to negotiate this quote-unquote interracial relationship. You write them arguing, screw that, you're white, he's black, that means you make the decisions, not him. Just tell him how it's going to be and let him know that you make the rules. I was horrified when I heard her say that. The idea that within these relationships we would maintain a white supremacist hierarchy was shocking and deeply troubling. I returned to my afternoon classes unable to concentrate. I asked for a hall pass, found my mother where she was substituting that day, and told her I needed to go home because I was sick. I thought the relationships were being kept secret because the teachers and administrators would have been against interracial dating. Our clique leader had made her bigotry plain, and now I had to wonder about the motives of other girls in our secret lover club. This is a little bit further down, and I would just kind of hold that in mind when white people say that white people are ignorant about racism, that these are high school students talking. A little further down, I guess would still be on 263. You write, no one was damaged more by these interracial relationships than black girlfriends. In coming years, they would find that white women's increasing willingness to engage in secret relationships completely changed the economy of black relationships. White girls who wanted to keep secrets encouraged black men to be dishonest in their relationships with black women. And since these white women were nearly always more promiscuous than the black women would have to contend with black men who suddenly saw no value in exclusive relationships during high school and college. Moving forward, this is, you also write about how your mom, a white woman, was punished because of your dating of black males in high schools, where they wanted her to stop you from doing this. She didn't do so, and they ended up not hiring her to substitute teach anymore because she would not curb your behavior. Let's see, this is on 271, I think. Let's see, you write, our town kept black people working the lowest possible wages because blacks in low wage positions made white lives more luxurious. When I enjoyed myself at Demetra, she's a black female, Demetra's house, I was double dipping. Furthermore, I was disrupting bonds in the black community by having a relationship with a black man. My disruption hurt black women more than it hurt black men. And all the while, I was patting myself on the back because I was so certain I was destroying the color line in a way that benefited everyone. This is on 272. You write, there's I guess a black guy, he was going to the NFL and he heard that you were I'm doing this intentionally. I tell people all the time not to make comparisons to Jackie Robinson, but you were the Jackie Robinson of interracial relationships in your high school. This is on the bottom of 271. You write, going pro. That this black guy who's going to be going to be an NFL player was interested in you, heard you were dating black guys. You write, how did I deserve the attention of someone who was on his way to play in the NFL? I was cute, but I wasn't beautiful. I had no curves at all. I was a terrible student, unlike his sister who worked hard and excelled at everything. What made me worthy of this attention? I was a white girl from a good family who was willing to date across color lines. That meant something to him. I knew that my whiteness was giving me extra points, and I should have felt bad about that, but I didn't. I reasoned that while I didn't believe my whiteness should count in my favor, if it did, then that was his problem, not mine. I thought of us as equals. He should too. We began dating during the summer between my high school graduation and my first semester at Texas A&M. Fast forwarding a little bit, his family wasn't thrilled with my choices, and I'm certain that he wouldn't have continued dating a black woman if she'd been a college dropout. My whiteness evidently canceled out the fact that I was on track to be a total loser. This is on 272. I remember discussing this with my sister at the time. We both agreed black girls had everything. Matter of fact, I'll read so you all get a little more context. In the new city, we fought a lot. This is the NFL black guy and our guest, Miss Tyler. In the new city, we fought a lot. I was unhappy. Whenever I thought he was cheating on me, my first question was always, is she black or white? I figured I may as well throw in the towel. I believe that black girls had it all. Oh, wait a minute. Let me make sure I get that correct. Whenever I thought he was cheating on me, my first question was always, is she black or white? If she was a black, I figured I may as well throw in the towel. I believed that black girls had it all and that if he'd chosen a black girl, I could never compete. If she was white, then I could challenge her for his attention, even if she was beautiful and curvy. I remember discussing this with my sister at the time, and we both agreed black girls had everything a black man could ever want, and we really didn't understand why they chose a white girl, but if they did, well, there we were. Later, I would hear it said that black men married white women because they were easier to cheat on. This is on 273, where you're talking about dating preferences and how this is going to impact what your child looks like. In balancing out strengths, weaknesses, all that. With this attention to detail, I became more aware of the need to cancel out my long head, long nose, and prominent chin. I added to my list thin lips and big ears. My skin doesn't tan to a rich bronze. Instead, I become the familiar terracotta of the leathery, beer-swilling folks who hang out at the lake all summer. I would need someone with milk chocolate or even semi-sweet chocolate to fix my terracotta. I think I can stop there. Folks should have a general flavor of a lot of what comes across in talking about your experiences with these quote-unquote interracial relationships. Number one, why did you include such detail and even specifically about how you, a white woman, being in some sort of sexual relationship with a black male, the adverse impact on black females? Why did you include so much detail around that? Do you still think that that's accurate?
So people who haven't read it, what I do is when we start talking about my life, because I learned so much about how I thought I was this great anti-racist, and then I figured out, wow, I wasn't doing anything for anybody but probably myself. So I tell my story. So when I say that in high school I was disrupting bonds, I only know that now. Back then, I was like, hey, they don't have to think all white people suck, because look, here I am enjoying them, and they're enjoying me, and, whatever. So I thought I was over there doing something, and I wasn't. So it's only in retrospect that I understand that that I wasn't serving anybody but myself. Okay, so then what happened to me was I read Malcolm X's book, and this was way back before Spike Lee made the movie. In my book, I say, I was a nanny in California because I was trying to get away from the NFL guy because our relationship was so dysfunctional. He went on to marry a different white woman. But so I was trying to get away from him. I was a nanny. I was bored. So I said, well, I've never really read because I'm a loser, because I really was just like the worst student ever. And then I started checking out books from the local libraries. First thing I read was Wilt Chamberlain's autobiography. He talked about Lew Alcindor. So I checked out Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he talked about Malcolm X. And I was like, wow, I want to understand what this guy was about. I go back to the library, and I'm like, I want to read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And she was like, well, I don't know where that is. And it took like 3 trips to the library. They had it under Malcolm Little. So I was offended by that. Like, I understood, because I had seen those interviews of Muhammad Ali when the whites continued to call him Cassius Clay. It was just like a little jab at him, like, we don't have to respect your name change. So I was like shocked that they had it, 30 years later, listed under Malcolm Little instead of Malcolm X. But I found the book and I read it, and it was really important for me. I understood that the goal of every black person was not to have white people like them. I understood that he said that if you're going to have a black organization, you don't need white people involved in it. They shouldn't be involved in it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And the scene where the white woman comes up to him, I think, oh, my God, that would so be me if I had lived back in the 60s, if I was me, right? And he didn't have any use for her. Like, we all know how he treated the girl. It was in the movie and whatever. So in the book, he said every time a black man marries a white woman, that's a drain on the black community. But in my mind, he was saying an accomplished black man, an accomplished black woman, and I saw that. I would see that black men that maybe were doing well for themselves in business or as athletes or whatever, when they did well for themselves and they married white girls, oh my God, and so many times those white girls were, in the book I call them tourists, because again, I was thinking I was better than them, because I was like, you don't know who Malcolm X is, you don't know anything about, anyway, so I too looked at these mothers, and I've heard so many white mothers complain about the texture of their daughter's hair. And I say, do you understand that it's not okay for you to say that? Yeah, okay, so it takes some time each week, but my God, you're not allowed to talk bad about your daughter's hair because it costs you time each week combing it out. That was just driving me crazy. Okay, so I need to get back on topic. So after I read Malcolm X, I said, okay, so then I cannot marry a black man. I cannot, because I'm going to have, I'm going to have a college degree. I'm going to be doing well for myself. Any black man who would be my equal from a career standpoint is someone who the black community needs. They don't need him running off marrying a white woman. So that was my thinking. For years, I did not date black men because I was like, no, I cannot do that to the black community. I love black women too much. I won't do it. So, anyway. That's pretty.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
275.
You say fascinating, and I know that means wait until we come back at you.
I I don't know what
Yeah,
that
it's
means. On
fascinating.
275, you write,
Okay.
and it's on the Malcolm X portion. The point was made in the book, Malcolm X's autobiography, that every educated, accomplished black man who marries a white woman reduces the pool of men available to educated, accomplished black women. I reasoned that if I truly loved black America, I could not be a part of its continued disintegration. It was as if I'd made a promise to the spirit of Malcolm X. I took that promise seriously, yet Malcolm X was now the prototype for the man I wanted to marry. He was intellectual, didn't care about money, and was dedicated to racial justice. He also didn't worship white people, and that was something I very much admired because I thought our society probably made it hard for blacks not to be brainwashed into admiring whites. I have two questions. Number one, your black male husband, William, he is married to you, a white woman. How are you sure he has not been brainwashed to admire whites?
I'm not sure.
Okay. This program,
but nothing that he says would lead me to believe that he's brainwashed into admiring whites. He didn't date white women before me, and yeah, I mean, I can't be. I certainly cannot be sure of that. You're right.
Okay. This matter of fact, I'll get in one more because this is a pretty dominant theme in the book, where you're talking, this is back to high school. This is on for me, it's 226. Derek, black male, high school. Derek was pretty aloof when it came to my attempts to get his attention, but I did exploit him in a way. I was not the cutest girl in our grade, but I was able to get the largest share of his attention, probably because I was white and he attached a value to my whiteness. I also had blonde hair, and he, like many others, recognized the America's obsession with a shade of blonde that only appears on children and Scandinavian women. He attached a value to that, just as he'd been taught to do by American media. That being the case, that in a big way contributes this program. I have taken the position that non-white people should never engage in sexual intercourse with white people as long as the system of racism, white supremacy exists, for many of the reasons Minister Malcolm X talks about, what you talk about in your book about black people being brainwashed, brain trashed to admire, worship, value, identify with white people, and that until all of that is eradicated, these relationships are inherently exploitative, and really they reinforce racism, white supremacy. It's white people taking advantage of someone who is in a very weak and vulnerable position every time. And I might even just go back and read your introduction about where you and your husband met, what your position in life was, person with a degree, house, great car, all of this, great credit score, and your husband being a homeless crack addict felon. Does that make sense? And do you see why?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I had already read where you guys say you cannot lay down with the enemy and fight racism. And I understand what you're saying. I totally do. Let me just clarify. The thing about Derek, that was in the 3rd grade or the 4th. Okay. So yeah. Anyway, that was me looking back on it and saying, did I use? So we agreed that I had an advantage. And yes, I had a crazy advantage over my husband. When we met, I have even now I have a lot of power that he just doesn't, because I make the money. Though I try not to hang it over his head, I say we get paid. But with his addiction, and yes, I mean, it's ridiculous. But I think it's important to understand he wasn't trying to fight racism. His parents were dead. He had nowhere to go. He was homeless. He was an addict. I know people say, well, no one, put a gun to his head and made him smoke crack. Whatever. He was homeless. He had nowhere to go. And we both agreed that we exploited each other. He wanted a place to live. He wanted my money. That's okay with me. I wanted his genes. I wanted his genetics. And I say in the book, it was like I asked him to be my sperm donor. And I liked him a lot. I thought he was the kindest, he was just a wonderful, wonderful guy. But just had decided I'm ready to have a baby, and so yeah, if you're fighting racism, I'm not sure you can be married to someone white. I'm not sure, but I'm the militant in our family. I'm the person who wants to fight racism. He really doesn't have any interest in fighting racism. He's just chilling, you know. I mean, we are a weird couple. I understand what you're saying, and I believe that there is some truth in that. But now we have a kid that we need to raise together. So, you know, I mean, if you had him on the phone, he would say, I'm not trying to fight racism. That's her. She's the one who's all caught up about race and trying to fix stuff. I'm just, you know,
chilling.
I don't know. He's different, right?
Whoa, that is profound on so many levels.
No, it's
I
not.
hope somebody, if you're listening, that should be a sound clip right there. Everything that you just heard, that right there, in my view, is the best illustration of all time on this program of the incorrectness of sexual intercourse between white people and non-white people. Thank you, Krystl Tyler. Weak Money, outstanding. Sound clip, YouTube video, bang, right there.
Because what? Because I say I wanted his genetics?
I mean, just every aspect of it. Even, and I want to make sure I get to this next one because it's important, so I'm not going to be late with this. But just...
He wanted my money.
Hang on. I mean, that's understood. I mean, that's set up. The system is designed.
Help me understand.
People have, you've already laid that out. So you didn't ask him. You didn't say, I wanted him to be a husband. I wanted him to be a father. You said, I wanted his genetics. I wanted him to be a sperm donor. That right there is the essence of when James Baldwin, when he talks about, it's in his book or it's transcribed. He had a conversation with Margaret Mead, who's a white woman, suspected white supremacist racist, but he was saying that there's this problem with white women that you are seen as a sort of walking phallus, basically, in the book. And
a walking what?
A walking penis, basically, is what he's saying.
Oh.
And for me, just that he is seen not a husband, not a father. You are a sperm donor. I want your genes. That right there.
No,
but that's what you said. Wait a minute, I'm not done because you asked me to explain. That was one aspect of it. The fact that you said he's not concerned with fighting against racism, which even contradicts what you said in your book. You said that he was kindred spirit with Malcolm X about him being for racial justice. You just said he's chilling. He's not about all this. You are the quote unquote militant one. That's what you said in the relationship.
Yeah.
That right there further to me illustrates the incorrectness. As Pam, the legend, always says, you cannot lay down with... Hang on. I'm allowing you to speak without interrupting. Hang on.
No, I'm fighting with my husband.
Okay.
Sorry.
If he
when
wants,
I said what, that was me talking to my husband. Go ahead.
Okay.
Keep going.
And the same thing that I said when we were speaking before the program, if you're a husband, if he wants to give his 2 cents, if he's listening, or if he wants to share it, we definitely will make time for that. I would love to hear his thoughts on this as well if people would like to contribute. But as Pam says all the time, racismws.com, her book, The Interracial Con Game, you cannot lay down with white people and get up and fight racism. And just what you said, your husband is not about fighting racism. He's chilling.
Right.
You are the one that alleges to be against racism. And just that right there for me encaptures the absurdity and the incorrectness of all of this. As I said, for listeners, that should be sound clip, share. Any non-white person that is thinking about having sexual intercourse with a white person, you should listen to that and really ponder on it, process it, marinate on it for a few days. And add this, because I want to get your response, because this it's right in the same ballpark. This is a little later in the book. It's 365. Where you are talking, this is after you have a child, you all are married and the whole nine. You say, then one day, in the poorest part of town, it hit me. I promised not to steal one of their best and brightest, talking about a black male. I'd never promised not to get all Svengali on an adorable, good-hearted, crack-addicted felon. So quicker than you can say, Snowflake Flossie, top Miss Ann, I became a black woman. Well, I had one growing inside me anyway. And until that umbilical cord was cut, I was her and she was me. And she grew older. As she grew older, I told her how, when we were still one person, I'd caressed my distended belly, dreamt of hair that reached for heavens and formed a halo around her full-featured face. I begged the universe for her brown skin and ebony eyes. The universe had delivered her to me. Sometimes, when we were together in the grocery store, I would see a black woman look at me, look at her, then look at me again. Some of them would grant me that extra half second of eye contact and I heard a harpsichord. Others granted me the tiniest hint of an approving smile, and that was Handel's Messiah Hallelujah chorus. But then if husband's head was right and he came along to the grocery store, I got death stares. The better he looked, the worse I was treated. No one understood that I wanted to make the community better by making him better. I hadn't stolen him. I had done a solid for his mother, who wasn't around anymore to help him herself. I grew bitter. You can reject me if you want, I reasoned, but my daughter needs to learn to be a strong black woman, so screw you. Screw you. I know what's in my heart. Screw you. I know you can't challenge my hood pass. Screw you. I am the mother of a black woman. I will not sit down and I will not shut up. After all that yelling, I was a sniveling, whimpering puddle on the floor. Why do you care? My husband asked. I don't know, I said, but I do. I do. Leah started school. I saw black mothers there picking up their black daughters, and I scanned my brain for the right thing to say. Should I reference a black movie, a song, a television show? How can I let them know that I'm not like all the other white moms? How will they understand that I am a white mom with an asterisk? I was all out of energy, and I wasn't sure I wanted the friendships because they came with too much pain. Sometimes I'd fret so much remembering how royally I'd screwed things up in the past that I'd decide it wasn't worth it. Those bitches are never satisfied. Nothing is ever going to be good enough for them. I don't care whether they like me or not. You go on to say that you reached out to get play dates with other black moms and their children, and they complied and didn't seem like there were, at least you didn't include there were any problems or what have you. That is a fascinating passage on so many levels. You talk about watching and reading Toni Morrison and Alice Walker and saying that you could be Shug Avery or any of the other characters in the book, Sophia, Nettie, whomever else in these books and or books that get made in the films, The Color Purple, Waiting to Exhale, whatever the case may be. You in your book have many portions where you talk about wanting approval, particularly from black females. Why? What was the source of this need, this hunger for black female approval?
I'm still not sure what it is. So the passage where I'm saying screw you is when I was in high school, so first grade, we were newly segregated, and for some reason I was just attracted toward the black children, black and white. And one thing that I say in the movie is maybe it was because they were so strong, they were so confident. And I know we're supposed to, I've read some black feminist works since I started writing the book, so I've learned that the whole strong black woman stereotype is problematic and all that. But at the time, that I had her in my stomach, I hadn't read that stuff yet. So, and then I know that there's this exotification, or it seems like I'm using, anyway, I don't know, but for my whole life, I have been attracted to black women and wanted so badly to have their approval. Black mothers, when, you had mentioned Demetrius, when I would go over to Demetra's, I just loved her aunts and her mother, and I needed them to accept me, and I loved it when they made fun of me. It was real weird because I felt like that was a sign that they were comfortable with me and that they liked me. I felt like they wouldn't make fun of me if they didn't trust that I got it. So I don't know. For my whole life, I have just craved black women's approval. And I felt like, after reading Malcolm X, I felt like, I can't do the right thing for my sisters. I'm sure you'll find that funny. If I am taking a black man from them. I understand that you think that I exploited him. I did. He exploited me as well. We look at that sometimes and we're like, we were using each other. I was too old. I was 37. It was time for me to have a kid. I had always said that I didn't want to have kids. I got to age 37. Suddenly, overnight, I changed my mind. I'm scanning my brain. Who can I get to be a sperm donor? And I considered white men. Absolutely. I thought through all kinds of guys that I had dated. I racked my brain, and I knew that I wanted him to be my sperm donor when he quoted a Langston Hughes poem to me from memory. I was like, okay, you have to be my sperm donor. And, he wasn't like, oh, you don't think of me as a human. He was like, well, I can't have kids. Anyway, you cannot use my interest in him being my sperm donor as proof that I did not see him as a human being. Because there were many black men that I thought of as husband and father material. But I did not feel it was my right to be with a black man as a husband and father. Anyway, you said it was just like perfect, and I'm just such a horrible exploiter of people. Anyway, gosh, I don't even remember what I'm supposed to be answering.
Let me respond to that quickly, because I didn't say you didn't see him as a human being. That is significant.
Oh yeah, that's right. You said I saw him as a phallus.
I said that you didn't say be my husband. You didn't say I want you to be the father of my child. You said sperm donor. I want your genes. I didn't say you didn't see him as a human being. So that's significant as well, that you inserted that, or thought I said that, or thought that you needed to respond in that manner. Hang on one second. Because the question that I asked was about black females, about why you wanted attention from black females, which is interesting too, that we somehow got back into defending that. With the black females, I find it interesting because you had said before that you love black people, which that you love black people, and you're talking about this wanting approval and having some sort of angst around not getting it, or just not being satisfied with, I guess, what you're standing with black females, if they're upset with you when your husband, William, when he's there and things are going well, then being upset about it, or just how they're perceiving you. But then when you have your moments where I guess you're bitter or frustrated about the attention that you're getting, or approval that you're getting or not getting from black females, just bluntly, I screwed things up and that would be appreciated as well if you could give some evidence of how you quote unquote screwed things up in the past. I'm assuming with black females, I would appreciate that. But to write, it wasn't worth the effort. Those bitches are never satisfied. Nothing is ever going to be good enough for them. That to me doesn't sound like love. That to me sounds very much the way that I would expect a white person or racist to talk about black people who do not adore them, who are not giving them the attention or whatever it is that they want. That sounds like the typical racist way that white people talk about black people. Like being a petulant child about it. But how have you screwed things up at the past? That would be good. How you?
Okay. So let me tell you. First, when I said I love black people, that was something that I felt when I was in high school. I understand now that that's a really weird thing to say. It's you love all black people. Like, it was just, that's something I said back then. That's not something that I would say today. Then when I'm saying that about those bitches are never satisfied, that was me showing Like, in any book, you're supposed to have this arc, right? And so I went through things, and I was like, I don't understand it. Why don't they love me? You know, and that's when I started to understand that I was being a baby, that I was being a petulant child. You know, yeah, when I was in high school, all I had to do was show up, and because of it being Texas in the 80s and the economy and all that, yeah, all I had to do was show up, and black people were like, hey, you're in our neighborhood? You must be a good white person. So I grew. I started to understand. And then in the 90s, when I was in college in Colorado, there wasn't any of that. Nobody adored me. I didn't get it. I got it. But so what I'm trying to show is the arc of what I went through. And what happened was we moved to Bermuda for a little while. And I had some friends who were, I don't know, conscious, I guess is the best way to put it. And one of them started telling me, okay, so then we moved back from Bermuda. I was friends online on Facebook with some people that were very conscious, would have been anti interracial relationships, would have read, you know, all the, you know, I don't know. So anyway, I was friends with them, and I was told, go read Tim Wise. Go read Tim Wise. And I was like, I don't understand what you're saying. Are you saying that I'm not allowed to participate in this conversation? So, the way that it started was, this guy was like the leader, kind of, and everybody looked up to him, and he posted that he heard some grandparents of an interracial child use the N-word. And I waited a few days because I enjoyed watching them talk, you know, because I've been told you need to listen. So I was listening. And then that thread kind of died. And I thought, you know, I just want to say this one thing. So I was friends with a white girl who was impregnated by a black man, and the father was not interested in being part of her life because he really saw it as more of a one-night stand. Her father was a racist. We're in the hospital. He's telling me he thinks that she's, you know, that this is an atrocity, that she's giving birth to a black child. When the baby came out, she said, hand him to my daddy. And the look in his eyes, you know, I just think it's really, like, kind of genetic that we're going to accept our own. And after that, he never let anybody say the N-word. He was, you know, I mean, he loved that kid to death. So when I wrote that, somebody responded, I don't think that you can stop being a racist overnight. And I said, no, absolutely not. I don't believe that either. I mean, there's still going to be things said in that household that are damaging to that child. But I just thought it was an interesting thing to witness, and I just wanted to say that. And I'm surprised that these people still use the N-word because of the experience that I had. And so it just became this thing where this guy who was like the leader of the group said, don't ever try to convince anyone your point of view. Like, don't teach people. Like, and so I was like, well, how are you going to, like, debate a topic? Because, like, I love this show. We're debating. I mean, kind of. At least to some extent, we're discussing. And he just was all against that. And it was like, do the work, do the work, do the work. You know, check your privilege, do the work. It's not our job to teach you. And I was like, so are you saying that I'm not allowed to talk right now? I have to go attend a Tim Wise seminar, and then I can come back and talk? Because they love Tim Wise. So that led me to look up Tim Wise, right? And that's when I first heard your show. I heard you. This was like 3 years ago. I heard you.
I am interested in this, but is this connected to how?
I know. I'm going on and on. All right. So I screwed it up because I was just like, when she just would not talk to me and kept telling me, do the work, do the work, do the work, I was just like, fuck you. And so I just started saying random stuff, and they were like, oh, the white woman has to be center stage, and then they ended up blocking me. And that, like, crushed me. My husband was like, why do you care? And I was like, I don't know, but I do. I wanted their approval. I wanted them to say, you're not like all the other white people. That's what I wanted more than anything, was for them to say, and this is twisted, I get it, but in retrospect, I'm saying, I wanted them to say, we hate all white people except you. You're cool. I know how twisted that is, but that's what I wanted. I wanted them to say, white people suck, except you, Krystl. And I don't know why. So then I was just like, fuck them. I hate them. This is too painful. I don't care anymore. And so I did go through this period where I was like, just fuck y'all. I hate y'all. And then my husband was like, and I was meaning like the more sort of conscious people, the people who were trying to, decolonize their minds. That was who I felt like, if I can make it with them, I can make it with anybody. And then I had to dial it back and say, you know what? I'm not going to be accepted. There's nothing I can do. And, this show is kind of like, I'm okay with that. Like, 3 years ago, if I had been on the show and you had thought that I was a fool and I was an exploiter, that would have crushed me. But today, I'm in a place where I'm like, it's okay. I don't get to be black. I don't get to be the special white girl that really does understand racism. I'm not black. I'm not going to be black. I'm not going to be accepted by some black people. I get that. And that doesn't make what y'all are trying to do wrong. I can accept that now. But back then, it would have crushed me. So that's basically a story of me screwing up and then being really resentful and bitter and fuck you and I don't care. You people are never satisfied. Everything I do, you're going to hate because I'm white. Just like I thought I was a victim. Oh, poor me. So, that.
Fascinating. We will get to some of our callers. I think Justice is with us as well. So we'll see if our co-host, has some questions, and then I'll get the folks that are on the line. Yeah, we will chime in. Before I get Justice, I'll give out the number in case folks want to ring in. The number again is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you would like to participate. Justice, if you have questions you would like to ask Miss Krystl Tyler, your line should be...
Krystl.
It's Krystl, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Krystl Tyler, your line should be open. Did you have any questions?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hi. You might have answered this, but I kind of called you a little bit late. But I was just wondering, do you ever talk to your children about racism?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Like, what do you say? Like, what do you tell them, or
I'm sorry?
Like, what do you tell them, or like, what do you talk to them about specifically?
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. I think you said, can I tell you just what we talk about specifically? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So, gosh. So my point to her is, and I struggled a lot with this, like, when are we going to start talking about slavery? When are we going to start talking about, Jim Crow and just everything? Like, I worried, like, if I talk to her about it too soon, do I give her a complex? Do I make her feel unloved? Because that's what my niece, who's now a senior in college, she says, so they used to talk to them about racism all the time because neither of their parents wanted to. And it's really weird because kids are different the way they accept that information. And I didn't do a very good job with her, but I'm trying to do better with my kid. But what ended up happening was every time I talked about racism, my nephew would get angry and be like, let's fight. I hate that. And then my daughter, my niece would just feel crushed, like rejected, and it really hurt her heart every time I talked to them about racism, whereas it invigorated my nephew. He was like, fuck crackers or whatever. So, with my daughter, I'm trying to do better. But one of the things that I talk to her, when I hear other people say, I don't want them to know about slavery or I don't want them to know about Jim Crow, what I say to them is, if you don't know the history, then you got to look at the world and come to the conclusion that there's something wrong with black people. So you have to know the history. You have to know about racism. Because if you don't, you're going to come to the wrong conclusion. So that's kind of the main thing that I talk to her about. I talk to her about, like, everything black people ever, and we try to keep it light. I know that sounds probably contradictory, but, I gave a talk last week, and this white guy at the end of my talk said, why do we have to talk about that at all? And I said, I don't know. When you're in a household, in our household, we talk about race all the time. If you're not talking about it, you have got your head in the sand. Because we built this country on racism. And now we have this mass incarceration thing, and we have so many black men saddled with this felony status. If you're not talking about it, then you're letting your child become a little racist who thinks, well, obviously white people are better because white people are richer and white people have better educations and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, I talk to her constantly about racism. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay.
Right on. The folks who dialed in with questions, let's see, Lashes. Did you have questions for Krystl Tyler? Krystl Tyler. Line should be open, Lashes. Oh, she got disconnected. Dang. Just dial back in if you can hear me. If you dial back in, if you got cut off or something happened, just dial back in. We'll pick you up. Caller in Alabama, did you have a question for Krystl Tyler? Krystl Tyler, your line should be open. Caller in Alabama.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to ask Ms. Tyler. I heard her speaking about child abuse and how black people practice child abuse and brag about it. I would like her to explain, if she could, how the system, how white people abuse black children in the system of white supremacy. I will repeat the question again. My question is, how do white people abuse black children in the system of white supremacy?
Okay, so you have to understand that when I said that, I was mad at my husband. I was tired of being told that I needed to hit my child. So I was over the top. And I knew that writing that in the book, I was exposing myself to some criticism, but I felt like it was necessary. So I don't believe that black people are necessarily abusing their children when they hit them. But I do think, get, frankly, I get sick of hearing black people talk about how great it is to hit your kids. Do I think that Adrian Peterson should be charged? Absolutely not. As for your actual question, I don't know that I'm the person to ask that. Obviously, everything about the system of white supremacy is abusive. And so there's no question that if we're going to talk about violence done to black children, certainly the perpetrators, there are many, many white perpetrators of violence against black children. And I don't even know if I'm talking about physical violence. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this by any means. But I'm certainly not saying that the worst thing that ever happens to a black kid is to get a whooping from their parents. Absolutely not. The system of white supremacy is much worse. Kids get hit. They've always been hit. White kids too. We just, like, a couple of generations ago, some of us stopped. you know? Even I was whipped by my parents, not anything crazy, but anyway, I'm not saying that the worst thing that ever happens to a kid is getting a whipping from their parents, to a black child. I hope that's enough.
I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I was just asking what way. Yeah. I did hear you say that since far as you can remember, you've been researching racism, reading books on racism. So I don't think you're ignorant on racism, because I haven't read that many books on racism. In fact, I don't think I've read any books on racism. But I'm asking you, since you read many books on racism, how do white people practice racism against black children in the system of racism, also known as white supremacy?
Yes. You know, there was and I talk about this in the book, there was I love Eric Holder. I think he's doing a great job as Attorney General. And he did a joint press conference where he showed that they had done a study, and black children are much more likely to get in trouble starting and punished. I can't quote it properly because I don't have stuff in front of me, so let me just try to say this right. You can check it out. It was a joint press conference about how black children are funneled into the school-to-prison pipeline as early as 4 years old. Just the way that whites, so if we know that the majority of administrators are white, the majority of teachers are white, black children, I think especially probably black boys, are begun to be treated in a discriminatory way, in a way that they're out of control, and they are, it's almost like white teachers and administrators think that they're already criminals at the age of 4. So I wish I could give you more information to go look that up. Maybe, Gus, I could, email it to you, and you could announce it on next week's show or something like that. But there was a report that Eric Holder came out with that from a very early age, black children are treated differently. This is here and now. This is not Jim Crow in the 50s. This is right now. We are still treating black children as if they have crime in their future by the way that we handle when they misbehave in a classroom. So a white kid gets talked to, but a black kid gets suspended. And I think that is horrible, horrible. We've got to fix that. We have to. I'm just glad the report came out.
Not to go on in a tangent, but I would like to, I like short, quick answers because I know other people will want to ask questions too.
Okay.
But I'm not going to press on that issue right there. I think you explained that you knew that non-white, also known as black children, are abused under the system of white supremacy. I would just say, the way I look at it, you have practiced a very serious form of child abuse. You yourself are a child abuser, in my mind, because you were not ignorant to the fact that your offspring would be abused, subjugated to extreme abuse. Once you had a child with a non-white person, you knowingly subjected your offspring to abuse. And that sabotage in itself, I look at, is a very extreme case of child abuse. And I'm just a victim, and I just wanted, I don't know, did you look at that? Did you look at how you're not giving, excuse me, I'm sorry.
So you're saying, and this is fascinating to me, to use Gus's favorite word, you're saying that by giving birth to a black child, I am
not making no claims, ma'am. I'm stating. I'm making a factual statement that you said yourself that you had knowledge of the fact that you are not white. Yeah, you stated. I didn't state this. I'm not making no claim.
No, I agree.
Excuse me, I was in the middle of saying something. You were making a statement saying that you had knowledge that being a non-white child, you will be subjected to extreme abuse. I'm not claiming this. You stated this. Now, having the knowledge that you was sabotaging your offspring by bringing them into this world as a non-white child, to me, I don't see no other way of looking at it other than knowingly abusing your child, because you sabotaging your child's future. You're not giving them all the same being able to practice the power that you was able to practice as a white female. You know, it's gonna be things that you could have did as a child, like experiences you were able to experience as a white child that you took from your child, because you know right now as an 8-year-old girl, you know for a fact, and don't tell me you don't, but I know you know it. You know that your child is going to be abused because she is a child of color. And you even laughing about it. You even laughing about the fact that you know that your child is going to be abused as a female, as a colored female. And I'm not, all I can say is I don't understand that mind state. I understand why black people want to bring their children into this world mixed with whiter skinned people, because they don't want their child subjected to the same racism that they have been subjected to. So they want the lighter skinned children, so they think that racism will be easy on them. So I understand your husband's way of looking at things, but you yourself, I don't understand the mindset. Why? Because I would not subject, if I had a choice, like if I was a white person, I would not bring a child into this world knowing that they would be sabotaged by the system of white supremacy. I wouldn't love them. That's not love. Why would you want them to come into this world to be done like that? That's sick. This is very so deep. I couldn't be wrong, but that's my opinion.
Do you have children? Do you have children?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So I think that's a very, I don't want to say fascinating again. That is, you have made me think, and I was really hoping by coming on this show that I would be challenged to think, that I would be challenged to question the way that I say things or the meaning behind the things that I say. And I thank you for making me look at it that way. I do want to say a couple of things. Here in Colorado, we live in a city called Aurora. Aurora is amazingly diverse. My daughter goes to a school where she is not a minority. There are so many mixed kids in Aurora, Colorado. But we also have a huge African community. And so she goes to a school where she learns in Chinese most of the time. And in the French department, there are a lot of black French teachers because they're African and their children are in the program. And so we looked at moving to Alabama, and I know that you're from there, and we looked at it, and when I was there, I was like, so where are the schools where both black and white children go to school together? And it was like, in Birmingham proper, it's a black school. In the suburbs, it's whites and Asians. And I was like, we cannot live here. I'm not going to put my child through this. So she has a lovely life. But I don't believe that, and here's the really sick thing. If there is a system that would channel her into the school-to-prison pipeline, because I am white, I can save her from that. And I understand that's disgusting. But that's the whole Peggy McIntosh paradigm, is that when a white woman gets mad, people pay attention. When a black woman gets mad, she's an angry black woman. So as sick as that is,
you can get into a car accident tomorrow and die. God forbid. But if you did and you died, could you save her from that? You thinking that you're going to be here. There's going to be a time you're not going to be around, especially when she's
You are so right. No, you are exactly right. And I know. And that's something that really made my husband and I come together after all that fighting. He suggested to me one day, what happens if you're gone? So he's a felon. The place we rent right now, we lied. We said that I was a single mom because we wouldn't be allowed to rent here if it was just him. So, yeah, her life would change crazy amount if I was gone. And you're so right when you say that I can't know that I'm going to be here. God, that was like a devastating thing to me when he mentioned that, and I realized how different her life would be. And so that's when we really came together and said, okay, how do we make sure that she's going to have the tools she needs to survive? Oh, I'm in the car.
And white people were in the system of white supremacy.
Yeah,
your daughter would not
have
nothing to worry about.
Caller in Alabama, I want to make sure we get our other folks that dialed in. Just hang tight.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
All good. Well, it's not all good, but right on. The person at 5321, did you have a question for Ms. Tyler? Your line should be open.
I'm almost done, I swear, okay? It's an interview about the book. We're talking about you, okay? I love you, okay?
Hello?
All right. I'm so sorry.
Hello?
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. We can hear you. 5321.
Oh, how's it going, Gus and guest? Now, I have a question for the guest, being that she spoke about genetics. So would you confirm that your genetics are weaker than your husband's?
I like that question. Okay, I'm getting out right now. My daughter's asking for something to eat. She doesn't like it when... Okay, so anyway, yes. Do you mean... So I had genetics. I took genetics classes in college. But I'm coming in to help you, honey. I'm going to get you what you want. No, hold on. I'm going to have to finish this phone call. So, yeah, I would say, yeah, I mean, things turned out great. I love his genetics. He's amazing. And she got the best of both of us, I think. I mean, she's going to have some kind of big ears. She got that from me. She's got my long chin, which I thought I hated, but when I saw it on her, I fell back in love with it. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm thrilled. She got his hips. She got his shoulders. Yeah, his genes are stronger. Cool. I love that.
So would that mean that you're weak? And with that being said, then why do white people overall like to perpetuate this notion that they're superior genetically when that's not fact? That's incorrect. From hair to eyes, the skin color, right, etc.
Well, there's a saying.
Can you break that down for me? Why do you and other white people perpetuate this? Oh, I'm better, I'm superior, and all people specifically.
You know, I kind of believe it's like this is just me talking because I'm not an expert on this, but there's some quote from Hitler about the big lie. So you tell the big lie, like if you tell a small lie, people won't fall for it, but if you tell a big lie that is ridiculous, so look that up, look up Hitler, the big lie, and read it, because it's kind of fascinating. I mean, we know he was evil, but he was also very influential. And he said, you know, don't tell a small lie, tell a big one, and there's some cognitive process that happens where people are just like, well, gosh, you know, they wouldn't say this ridiculous, outrageous thing unless it were true. So I would attribute it to the big lie. And then there's another saying, and I learned about this in research into the book. They say that racism did not lead to slavery. Slavery led to racism. So there's the idea that white people didn't want to have to feel bad about what they were doing to black people. So to ease their conscience, they told themselves that black people were not as good as they were. So it was a coping strategy. It's a lie white people told themselves, and some today continue to tell themselves. They do that because the only other explanation would be that they're terrible people. So they have to either see black people as lesser than and therefore needing the care of white people, or they have to say, wow, I might be a really evil, horrible person. So they choose to believe that blacks are less than because it's more comfortable that way. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that's disgusting, but that's, I think, the way that it is.
So then we're saying that white people have recessive genes. Is that correct? So
A sense of what?
No, recessive genes.
I can't understand what you're saying.
Recessive, recessive.
Oh, recessive.
Dominant. Yeah. So you have recessive genes.
I think that's a position that was taken, like, by Malcolm X, the whole Dr. C.O.W.S thing. There are some, yes, absolutely. Ebony eyes are dominant. Brown skin, it's not that simple. Actually, what I was told in genetics classes were that you should think of skin color as 15 light switches, because there are a lot of different genes that control skin color, and that's why with my sister's kids, she has one dark kid and one light kid. So obviously, dark skin is not. It is neither recessive nor dominant.
Can I cut you off? Can I cut you off? You just have a child with a white person or a non-white person? You have a child with a white person? Does she have a child with a white male?
No, she had a child with a black man. She had 2 children with a black man. Well, we've seen it. We've all seen it everywhere. You mix 2 colors of people and you get surprising results. So no, I would say black skin is not dominant. If you look at Africa, you have Ethiopians living right next to Sudanese. And so, you just never know what you're going to get. We think we know how white people were created. We know that black people were the original people, but they weren't dark black people. They were the Kun of the Kalahari Desert. I know this because I majored in anthropology, but the original people were kind of a lighter than milk chocolate, kind of. And then so when you have a Sudanese person who is super, super dark, that's not the original people any more than those super, super pale people up in Norway. So, yeah, there's some things with the recessive and the dominant, but it's not that simple.
Hang on, sir, because I can see it might end up being more questions, and I want to try to make sure we get everybody.
I'm sorry.
We'll live. Lashes, did you have a question you wanted to get in for Ms. Tyler? Your line should be open.
Yes. Why is it that the guest did not choose a white male as a mate? And why did she not find the white male attractive or worthy enough of her time to pursue?
Mm-hmm. So that's really complicated, and the answer is exploitive, right? Because I've already admitted that I exploited. To me, it was like this game of I have certain things to give, and I have certain things I can't give. Like, I never had a good body. Never. I just don't. I mean, I'm boxy. So what happened was I could get better-looking black men. Like, the first black man that I kissed was the star of the basketball team, and he was way out of my league in terms of his physical attributes compared to mine. And I didn't understand why he was...
Wait, ma'am, with all due respect, what is it about the white male you do not find attractive nor worth your time to pursue?
Okay.
What is it about the white male? Not the black male. We already
got it.
What is it about the white male?
That's really tough. Gosh. Whenever I dated white men, they were not strong enough mentally, I felt. I felt that they were weak mentally, and that was very unattractive to me. I think that's a simple enough answer. Does that work for you?
I was also very to believe because the white male in the system of racism, white supremacy, contains.
Hello?
Lashes, are you there? Let me see. I don't know if she got. Did you hit your mute button?
Okay.
Or, she got cut off. I'm
sorry. she found it hard to believe. I'm not talking about white men not having power in society. I'm just talking about in relationships that I had with white men. It seemed like they were so eager to please that they lost their background. So it's not that they didn't have power in society. They didn't. They would go on to have that power, obviously, as they got their degrees or whatever. Their dads got them jobs, whatever. But in relationships, I felt like they did not hold their own, that they had not been taught to be strong. And I feel like, and my husband says this in the book, I quote him saying, you are attacking the way that black people raise children, and yet all your life you were attracted to black people. So they must have been doing something right. And I come to that conclusion, too, that I don't know what it was that made me always attracted toward black people, but they were strong. Mentally, they had this sense of themselves, and we didn't. And I just was so very attracted to that. And so when I dated white men, I felt like they didn't know who they were. I felt like they didn't know how to hold their own. It was all like if you said, God, stop making that noise. I'm sorry. Oh, please, are you mad at me? Blah, blah, blah. Whereas black men would be like, what? I don't know. It just, like, my husband and I, give each other shit all the time and cuss each other out. And it's just our way of keeping the peace. We don't really annoy each other because we say what we think when we think it. And I don't think a white man could do that. So I would be living in a house where I had to hold my tongue, and he would get on my nerves, and I wouldn't worry about his feelings. And even my mom taught me that, men's egos are very, very weak, so don't criticize them or say anything and blah, blah, blah. You're always supposed to tiptoe around your man's ego. But I don't find that with my husband. We just say shit to each other like crazy shit. And my daughter used to say, stop fighting. And I would say, oh, honey, we're not fighting. We're just, talking smack to each other. I don't know. So, okay.
But I find that hard to believe because it's you, the white female, who created the white male. So why would you not find your own male attractive?
I don't know. That's like a question for the ages. What is love? Why are we here? How could a white lady make a white man and not love white men? I don't know. Sorry.
Did that answer your question, Lashes, or?
I know it didn't, but I can't answer it.
It didn't, because she can go into extensive details about the black male or the black female in any regard, but when it comes to the white male, it's very short, sweet answer with no elaboration. So I find it to be very, very suspect.
You know what? Okay, I'll give you another part of an answer. I've been very close to marrying a Jewish man. He was dark skinned because, anyway, I wanted my children to have darker skin than I have. I didn't like it that my veins show through. Anyway, I did love a white man, a technically white man, but he could not deal with my interest in racism. And I could not deal with his blind obedience to the policies of Israel, because I believe that those are essentially racist, and I think that the Palestinians are being treated wrong. And so essentially I loved him, and he was strong. He was really cool and great, but he was blind when it came to the racism that is going on in Israel, and I just couldn't take it. And I thought, I can't do this for the rest of my life. Plus, he did some really weird things, like I bought him a Mandela poster for his classroom, and he said he would not ever put up a poster of Mandela because Mandela kissed Yasser Arafat. And I was like, really? Mandela is amazing, and you're mad about a kiss? So honestly, I never dated a white guy who didn't show some level of racism, and I couldn't take that. So, you still may not believe me, but I'm trying to be short with my answers because I think that's what Gus wants me to do. What, husband?
But do you last thing would be that you do understand that you yourself is a prime exhibit of the definition of racism, white supremacy that Gus shared with you at the top of the show. You know that, right? Because you exhibit pure dedication to abusing and or subjugating anyone in the known universe whom white people classify as not white. You do know that, right? Your persistence.
No, I don't know that.
For dark, black genetics is an example of dedication. You know that, right?
Okay. All I can say is I'm trying, and if you can tell me a better way, please do, because I've been trying, and I'm trying, and I want to do better. I want so bad to do better. So if you can tell me how to do better, please tell me. What can I do?
For example,
I want.
You can start by sharing with your daughter, who's 8 years old, explain to her in detail how racism, white supremacy works in the hands of white folks. Not just explain to her about slavery, not just explain to her about Jim Crow, but exactly how racism, white supremacy works. What code words do white people use when in regard to talking about people who are not white when they are in their darnest interest and desire to subjugate and abuse anyone that is not white? That's what you can start by doing.
Okay, so you know what? Desire. I take issue with the use of the word desire, but I do teach my child, and I just feel like that is just not probably going to be that effective. I want to be part of overturning mass incarceration. That is my pet cause. What the hell? We need to legalize drugs. We need to ban the box. We need to let people out of jail. We need to provide jobs. There's so much more we can do than me talking to my kid. I talked to her, but believe me, I thought you were going to offer me something really golden. I thought you were going to tell me something that blew my mind. You think talking to my daughter is going to change the world?
Lashes, it sounds like your volume dropped really low. Lashes, your volume dropped really, really low. I thought you had stopped talking, but then it seemed like you were just really, really faint in the background, so I don't know if something happened. But somebody, I did want to try to get in because there are 3 other people I wanted to make sure I got their questions in as well. But your volume just went way low. I don't know if something happened or connection, but your volume dropped really, really low. The caller at 6167, did you have a question for Ms. Tyler, 6167?
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Greetings, all. Greetings to your guests. I may have missed this, and you all may have covered this earlier in the show. Your daughter, you describe her as a black female.
Mm-hmm.
You do not call her biracial, or do you? How do you encourage her to describe herself?
So, what she understands, my position is that the only thing she isn't is white. She can choose between things. She is not a white. Sorry?
Okay, I couldn't hear you. Just go ahead. I'm sorry. I could not hear you.
Okay. So because of our racist society, the only thing that she is not is white. Sometimes she'll be mixed. Sometimes she'll be thought of as black, but she will never be thought of as white. She knows that. And from a very early age, I encouraged her to love being black. And we did that mainly through dolls. I think you can hear me right now, so I'm going to try and quiet down. But my thing was, instead of adoring her directly, I adored other people, and I adored dolls. And I would say, isn't her skin so beautiful, and isn't her hair so amazing? And I have had other interracial families ask me, oh, my God, what do you do if your kid, built an avatar on Wii and it's a blonde kid? My kid would never do that, because I would say to her, oh, you can be the blonde one. I don't want to be the blonde one. I want to be the brown one. So she loves being brown. She alternately refers to herself as black or mixed, just depending on what is appropriate for the context. You know, if she's around people who would think of her as black, or I just feel like the worst thing that could ever happen to a mixed-race child, and I've seen this before, is these obviously mixed obviously going to be considered black by other people, kid goes, I don't really feel like I'm black. Like, I don't feel black at all. And I don't understand why, I'm just, from my perspective, I'm white. And I'm thinking, oh my God, from your perspective, you're white. But from racist people's perspective, and really everybody, you're black. It's clear you're black. Look at you. So I never wanted her to, is that good? I mean, is that an answer?
That's fine. You went. So
okay.
How do you, as a white woman, teach her to be a black female?
So that is horribly hard because his mother is already dead.
Or do you think, as a white female, you can teach her to be a black female?
No, that's going to be like the struggle of my life. Luckily, we have amazing friends who are black couples with black daughters who are just really, really wonderful to her. Just amazing.
Sorry to interject. So how do you teach your daughter to interact with black females who have a lot of color? And when I say have a lot of color, black females who are at the least Gabrielle Union. I don't know if you're familiar with this actress, someone who is very noticeably dark. How do you teach your daughter, who I'm sure may be tailors and those, undeniably black people, how do you, particularly black females, how do you teach her to relate to them? Because she will have a little bit more power in the society than they. And so how do you, as a white woman, why would you call her a black female? I understand, and I accept biracial people or non-white people if they want to accept their so-called black side. But as a white female, and you say you so-called have an understanding of racism and white supremacy, why would you encourage your daughter to identify as black? I mean, if you have an understanding and you understand the color hierarchy, just explain to me, how do you teach her or encourage her to interact with darker, real black people? Right.
Okay. So like I said, I don't ever want someone to call her black and her go, I'm not black, I'm mixed. So she's very comfortable with either label, so that's the main reason that I refer to her as black. She needs to accept that some people are going to think of her as black, and I don't ever want her to reject that label. She loves being black. She loves it.
Or she accepts her black side.
Absolutely. And if someone wants to call her black, she's not going to recoil from that. I understand you don't think that she is. That's fine. But I don't think we want to argue that because you had some other questions that I definitely want to speak to. So how do I teach her to relate to darker-skinned children? So I really want to...
Females specifically.
Yes,
I want to focus on black females specifically.
Okay, so... Okay. So she believes that dark skin is gorgeous. And I know that she will have at least some more power. I'm very worried about adolescence because I don't want her to start thinking that she's popped up because I know because I grew up in Texas and I saw how mixed children in the black community were treated. They were treated like they were royalty. I don't want colorism to affect her friends. And I don't want her presence among them to hurt their self-esteem. I'm very worried about that. So, I could give the longest answer to this, but I realized that when I put her with dark-skinned girls, she may almost become a weapon against their self-esteem. So I have decided that she will be around them, but only in private. Like I don't know. I'm worried about it.
Why don't you put your daughter in white environment?
Oh, her best friend across the street is white. Of course she's in white environments. How can you avoid white environments in America? I don't even think that's possible. But I have to be conscientious about making sure that she has great friends who are, here's the coolest thing ever. She studies in Mandarin. Her 4 best friends are black girls with black parents, dark skin. One of them has light eyes, but the rest are dark skin with dark eyes. and they all speak Mandarin. They are going to be the most kick-ass Lego team we're putting together.
Okay,
I mean, they're just...
thank you. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but you've answered my questions. And just to speak to the other caller's comment of, do you understand why you are the epitome of Gus's definition of racism and white supremacy? You know, everything that you represent.
Sure.
So, but thank you for taking the time to answer my question.
Hey, no problem. Like I said, I would have cried crocodile tears a couple of years ago if you guys didn't like me. But I'm at a place now where my husband has convinced me that there is work for me to do, whether you guys like me or not.
The caller at 8179, did you have a question for Ms. Tyler, Krystl Tyler, 8179?
Yes, may I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Wow, I have been listening to your guest, and sounds like a lot of the things she said, and based off of a lot of the reading that you did from the excerpts of her book, was quite contradictory. And I am just, okay, so the questions I have is, what is your concept of God?
Well, I'm an atheist. I'm not a Christian. I don't know what is in the afterlife, but I don't think it's a white guy who, I don't know. I'm not, to me it's more of a force. It's more of I don't know. I call myself agnostic because I just don't know. There's my concept of God.
Okay. Do you prefer your daughter? She's 8, you said, and she's obviously going to reach an age where she's dating, interested in boys. So, are you encouraging her to date anyone, date black, non-whites, or what is your preference for your daughter?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So my mixed race niece dates only white guys, and yes, that concerns me. I wonder about microaggressions. We happened to have a funny conversation. It was funny to us. It's probably not to y'all. We were talking about our ideal mate for Leah and when she was allowed to date. And I was saying, well, it's going to be a while, but I hope she finds a black nerd. Like, we're trying to raise her to be geeky, very science-oriented, and I would love it if she found a black man who was geeky and nerdy and just like her, you know, love science, love language, love learning. So, yeah. But if she dates a mixed guy, that's cool, too, and I don't know how I'll feel if she's with white men. I will worry, but I don't know.
Do you love being white? Do you like
No.
What is your?
I feel like being white comes with, oh gosh, we've done really, 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 really terrible things. But no, I can't say I love.
So you have a position that sounds like that you're trying to make up for the wrong.
I do.
So to speak.
I hope. Yeah. I'm trying. I don't know.
Is that the purpose of why you wrote the book? And this is why you said at the beginning that your book was for white audiences?
Absolutely. I do think that it is my job to try to help white people understand how America got to be the world, too, but they're not ready. I just feel like there's too many people that aren't ready for understanding the world history.
Well,
so we need to start with the U.S.
Well, in all due respect, I appreciate you coming on the show. However, I'm thinking your mission is going to be pretty difficult because you have so many contradictions with what you say and what just how you've been answering the questions. I mean, I wish you the best in your efforts, but I mean, it's just really interesting how your logic and I think kind of speechless.
Sure. Right. And I've listened to the show before, and I know how this goes. Gus is very positive, and then you guys just like come on to verbally abuse a guest. I'm cool with that.
Well, no, ma'am. Well, see, it's really interesting because you have a preconceived notion with, from what I've heard, Gus has given you opportunity to speak. All of the listeners, we're actually interested in what you have to say, and we're just trying to get you to give us clarity on the position and the stance that you take. And it's a lot of contradictions. So for you to paint this broad brush on the audience, and you kind of come across like you are, you have your defenses up without really. It just doesn't seem genuine, in my opinion.
Okay, so I would say that the contradictions that you believe that you've heard have to do with the fact that in the book I talk about how I felt at the time and how I feel retrospectively, and the things that I have learned. So you're hearing me talk about how I felt in high school, but then how I look back on how I felt in high school, and I felt like I was wrong about that. So, I'm sure I do sound like, go ahead.
Well, it's a lot of the things that you say now. The reality is you're married to a non-white person. You reference in the book how you just, kind of just idolized or, felt so spiritually connected with Malcolm X and his cause, and how your selection process of your husband is really suspect. So, you weren't a kid when you selected your husband. You wanted his genetics and, so it's really not, honestly, so you're making an assumption, but honestly, the conclusion I came to was based off of how you present yourself today. So I appreciate you coming on.
But see, there are errors in what you've just said, and it's based on the fact that you haven't read the book, but you have heard what Gus said. And I'm okay with that. I didn't write the book for black people, so I don't want you to go read it and love me and think that I make sense. I understand y'all are never going to like me. I got that. I don't think there's ever been anybody white that came on the show that y'all like. Is there? Because I'd love to know who that is, and I'm going to listen to that episode. But I'm cool. Hey, I'm asking you, is there somebody? Is there?
I want to make sure we get to the next call.
I know, I'm laughing too, sister. I think it's hilarious.
She said, sister.
I'm not hurt by what y'all are saying about me. Y'all kill me too. What?
Thank you. I appreciate you. I wish you well in all your endeavors. I'll mute my line.
Likewise.
Last caller, person in a block.
Fascinating.
The person calling in from a block number. Did you have a question for Miss Krystl Tyler? Your line should be open.
Yes. Thank you for being on the show, Krystl Tyler. You said something that kind of left me mind-boggled. One of the things you said that I believe it was in Texas that mixed children are treated like royalty, and I think that is a matter of perception and where you are in the country that you believe that. Because in my opinion, black people and white people who create children from those unions are creating children, young adults, and people to be tortured for life mentally, emotionally, and physically above and beyond what a black person would normally experience. And what's your thought on that?
So that was a pretty broad statement on my part. There was one girl that I knew that was mixed race. And this is the 80s, and this is Texas, and this is a mid-sized town. And I remember being at an event. It was like a Special Olympics or a walk-a-thon or something. And there was a hometown hero who was a football player, and everybody was crowded around him. And he had this little mixed girl up next to him, and he showered her with attention the entire time he was there at the event. And she had a very dark-skinned sister who was not particularly pretty, but she was the goddess. And everyone in our town, in the black community, everyone knew her. When I crossed the color line and started dating for the first time, he ended up leaving me for her because his parents, and this is a quote, preferred that he be with a yellowhammer. They didn't like white people. They were thrilled that he had gotten the attention of this darling of the community who was a yellowhammer. What was the other thing they called him? I can't even remember. So I'm speaking from having experienced that growing up. I saw how the colorism affected my classmates. I don't know what goes on. I can't be black. I didn't grow up. You are so right that it is a matter of perception. I saw the colorism in my community. I do not want Leah to be used as a weapon of colorism. I saw the movie Dark Girls. It broke my heart. I hate colorism. I hate it. And so I do not want my daughter, if she's with her dark-skinned friends, getting more attention, especially from black boys. That would hurt my heart so much for those girls to feel chosen, like pushed to the side because she's got her straighter hair and her. So yeah, I don't even remember what the question was. I hope I answered it.
Do you think that mixed children of black and white unions, because they get more attention, that equates that the motives of the people who's giving them more attention is one that is for a positive experience?
No. I think that's called colorism, and the black community has a lot to say on that, and I don't ever. I mean, my husband said some colorist stuff before, and I'm like, no, you are not saying that in front of my child. You're going to infect her with colorism. Okay, you think you're hot stuff because you're the color of a brown paper bag. We're not going to talk bad about dark people. So he stopped now because he's made me mad so many times. But, I didn't want to marry a racist. I damn sure didn't want to marry a black colorist. But anyway, go ahead.
Thank you for being on the show. It's been very enlightening.
Thank you for being nice to me. Respectful of me, I guess, is a better thing to say. Go ahead, Gus.
Excuse me, we hit all our callers. I just had 2 points I wanted to get in. Thank you for indulging us with your time. You wrote, and I make an effort to share with our audience to notice, compare, and contrast the white people that come on the program who are familiar with our program, who've heard the program, and or the white people who are repeat guests, individuals like Jacqueline Badalore, or Tim Wise, or Jessica Pettit, white people who've been on the program more than once, to compare how they present the first time against the second time, and then compare that against the white people who come here and don't know anything about the program, and how they respond, what they say, that sort of thing, even the statements that they make about what they know about the broadcast. You wrote in letting me know that you knew about us. You heard the program before. You shared that you had heard, I guess, the broadcast that we did with Tim Wise, one of them. You said that if I judge by your Facebook posts, I don't think you are as much black supremacist as some of your listeners, but you do need to give your listeners what they want. And I'm not too worked up about black supremacy. Malcolm X did some of his best work while still a black supremacist. What do you mean when you say black supremacist? Right.
So, yeah, I agree with your definition of white supremacy, and I've come to understand the definition of white supremacy. I always thought it meant white people who thought that white people were the best, right? And now I understand that our entire country is white supremacist, and so I get the other definition. So when I wrote that to you, I realized, so I know you have had people who are repeat guests. I learned so much from the first time that I heard you. It helped me reflect on myself. And I know that I'm growing from being on the show now. That's why I was like, absolutely, I want to be on the show. Absolutely. I know I'm going to be sent through the ringer. I'm ready. Tell me what I'm saying that sounds like horrible, and then I'm going to check myself, and I'm going to try to get better. But so when I said black supremacy, what I meant was that whole like Dr. C.O.W.S thing and one of the callers was talking about recessive genes, and it, Malcolm X inspired me to major in anthropology and to take genetics classes to try to understand evolution. And I do not believe. I know that there are people who believe that white people fuck dogs in caves, and white people are evil inherently, and white people cannot be good, and white people cannot want to, the master's tools will never disassemble the master's house or whatever. I get that. And that to me is a position of that black people are better in absolutely every way than white people. That to me that's what I would call Malcolm X's black supremacist phase. And that did not bother me. If you grow up in a white supremacist society, that is very damaging. It is the colonized mind. So what I consider black supremacy is sometimes what I consider a necessary phase to decolonize your mind. And so that's why it doesn't bother me. There's a lot of brainwashing that needs to be undone. And so if you're in that phase where you're trying to become unbrainwashed, that doesn't bother me. I'm not going to hate you because you are feeling like you love black people and you think there's something seriously wrong with white people. I get that.
Your Facebook post, to me at least, suggested that you wrote, "I'm not too worked up about black supremacy," suggesting in some way that there might be something incorrect about this, particularly the earlier one. I would just, again, to listeners, this is, to me, basic logic. You can't have white supremacy and black supremacy at the same time. That is the essence of supreme. One of them is not supreme. If we are in a total planet of racism, white supremacy, then there can be no such thing as black supremacy. I would be very cautious about when people throw that term out, particularly if they're making an accusation that you or someone else is a black supremacist. You also accused our listeners and or me of abusing, quote unquote, guests. Do you know of anyone who has been harmed as a result of being on this program?
No, verbal abuse is considered harmful over time, right? I mean, do you believe that there's no such thing as verbal abuse?
Do you have any evidence that anyone has been harmed as a result of being on this program?
Do you believe there's such a thing as verbal abuse?
I asked my question first. I think the general protocol is person who asks the question, they should get an answer before the next question is asked. So my question was asked first. Do you have any evidence that anyone who's been a guest on this program has been harmed?
No, not at all.
Okay, that sounds like a false charge to me, to say that myself or the guest
you
or
can be
abusive.
You can be verbally abusive without the person allowing themselves to feel abused. I don't know how those people felt when they got off your show. I do feel that your callers have been verbally abusive, but I have not been harmed by that. No, I haven't. 3 years ago, it would have crushed me. Oh, black people don't like me. It would have killed me. But my husband has helped me understand that there are always going to be some black people that there's nothing I can do, nothing. I could kill myself and you wouldn't be happy. So I'm cool. Y'all don't like me. I get it. Y'all think I'm misguided. I get it. Y'all think I'm fascinating. Okay, cool, fine. I'm okay with that. I'm trying.
It doesn't sound
I
fine.
think that I'm trying as hard as I can. Please tell me how to do better. Tell me how to do better.
What exactly, if you could pinpoint, what exactly was said that you would classify as abusive that you heard today from myself or anyone who participated?
No, not from you. Not from
Anybody.
you. Just
Give me something specific.
I don't know. I'll have to listen to it. I just at the time.
That's
funny to you, but it was the woman who was right before. It's not the man who just called, but the woman before him. I don't even know what she was saying, but people don't believe me, and people that I'm the epitome of racism, and the things that I'm saying are just so obviously. Oh my God! Clearly, she's I don't even know what y'all are talking. Whatever. I'm trying. Tell me how to do better. I'm going to listen back through this show a number of times. I'm going to listen to the people that you say have been on the show repeatedly and that have done better their second time. I want to be better. My whole book is a mea culpa. I am sorry. I am fucking up, and I want to do better. So tell me how to do better, and I will try that. But I'm not, okay, so this is problematic too, me begging you to help me do better. It's not our job to teach you. Okay, fine. Then just yell at me and tell me I'm the epitome of racism.
I don't think anyone yelled at you. That would be another false charge, in my opinion. Nobody. Those false charges from a white person, that right there, in my view, is an act of racism because nobody yelled at you today. It's just not true. Right. At any rate,
were you harmed? Were you harmed by me exaggerating, by me thinking I was yelled at? Were you harmed by that?
Man, I would say anytime that a black person is falsely accused under the system of racism, white supremacy,
oh my God,
and mistreatment.
Oh my God! So I guess you're Mike Brown now.
You said you didn't even believe in harm. At any rate, God. You commented. I do want to make sure I get this.
You're Mike Brown. The racism that I just did against you is so horrible.
Get your response.
Okay,
you were talking about. The Ray Rice situation. I guess before we conclude, if your husband, I don't know if he's been listening or what have you, but you at least said that he might have had an inkling of wanting to respond. If he wants to get in his view on what we shared, I definitely want to give him that time if he has anything to say before we wrap up. But
no, he was saying all he was saying was he was going to basically tell you to fuck off. So I was like, you know what? No. It's okay. I want to go on the show. I want to be attacked. I want to learn. I want to get better.
Okay.
So
attacked.
I know.
That right.
I know. Isn't it amazing how brainwashed he must be to defend a white man, a white woman against these
and he's
horrible,
a crusader for justice. You said he's kindred spirit of Malcolm X. Like that is. Wow. At any rate,
I know. I'm amazing. I am one in a million.
Ray Rice.
Chance of a lifetime.
Larry Graham. We were talking
I'm one
about
in a million, am I not?
Before the broadcast, and you had an interesting take on how all of this has been presented in the news. Yeah. Because in particular, it's in your book where you were involved with a black male NFL player.
Oh, yes.
What were your thoughts in terms of how this has been presented and your experience with a black male, what you've seen, if there's anything where he might have been accused of doing something wrong, law enforcement might get involved. What's your view on that?
Okay. So I had told you about a situation where I acted out against someone and he got arrested, right?
Black male.
That's what you want me to talk about?
Yes, ma'am. This is a black male, right?
I think this is horrible, and I'm going to tell it because I think it's horrible. So I'm sorry if somehow during my telling of this story, I expose myself as the horrible racist that I am. But I'm going to tell it anyway. Okay. So I was dating a black man. We had a very volatile relationship because he cheated on me a lot. And so there was a weekend where I was ignoring him, pretending he didn't exist. So when I left to go get something, he piled furniture up against the door. So that even though I had a key, I couldn't get into the apartment. So I went outside, and I don't know what possessed me, probably my evil white nature. But for some reason, I thought if I throw a rock against the window, it will bounce off, he will get scared I'm going to break it, and he will open the door. And I think it was because it's really hard to break a car window that I thought, this will not break the window. It was very stupid on my part. We lived in a basement apartment, so I throw this rock up against the window, and the window is paper thin. It shatters. His 4-year-old son is sitting on a futon under the window, and glass kind of comes down. It doesn't hit him. None of it hits him because he wasn't that close to the window. But just the prospect of having a child have this breaking glass falling down is horrifying, of course, for a parent, for anybody with any compassion. And so he immediately says, he picks up the phone and he says, she's going to jail. And he's calling 911. So then his son goes, Krystl, you're going to jail. And I was like, I know. So I had left my purse down by the door. So I think I'm going to run down, grab my purse, and get the hell out of here because I don't want to be here when the police come. Well, as I grab my purse, he opens the door. I run up this short flight of stairs, and I'm running in flip-flops. And right as he reaches out for me, he grabs my hair clip, and I trip and fall. So there are some white women who heard the window break and came out on their balcony. They also call the police. The police come, and the police interview each of us. And I say what I did, and they say, well, you're on the lease. You have a right to break your own window, but he didn't have any right to assault you. And I said, he didn't assault me. And they said, well, we have witnesses who say he did. And I say, but he didn't. And they said, in domestic abuse cases, there's a problem with women who don't tell the truth about their abusers. And I thought, this is ridiculous. He's not my abuser at all. I mean, oh, my God. So they take him to jail. And we try to, so I read the police report, and the police lied. They said that he picked me up and threw me down, when he did nothing like that. So then I'm trying to get the charges dropped, and what I keep hearing over and over again is that I'm such a battered woman that I cannot rationally explain what happened because I'm this battered woman. And so I tell them, he has a great job, he has no record. He cannot have this on his record. This is awful, and it's all my fault. And a black woman who worked in the domestic counseling thing of the court points to this chart on the wall, and she shows me how every abused woman says that. Every abused woman says he's a good guy and he shouldn't have this on his record and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you people are not listening to me. I'm not abused. I threw a rock through a window. And we have some racist white people upstairs that lied or misperceived. We have some racist cops who lied. And now you're telling me that I can't drop the charges. So yes, this black man, eventually he hired a lawyer. He called me and he said, my lawyer says that if you just don't show up, then the charges will be dropped automatically. And I was terrified because I thought, then is there going to be a warrant for my arrest? So I was scared, but I thought it's the least I can do. So I didn't show up. The charges were dropped. He doesn't have anything on his record. He's got a great career. He was married to a black woman before me. He's married to a black woman after me. He's back away from my evil nature as a racist white woman. So, yeah, that was really eye-opening for me. We had joked about that before, that if the police ever got involved in our relationship, he would be automatically seen as the aggressor and the criminal. And, wow, we were really shocked at how bad it was. That was in Kansas City. And it was awful. It was really awful, and it was really unfair and whatever. So I know y'all don't think I'm a great person because I recognize the racism of that situation. I know, you guys, yeah. So it's still a story worth telling.
I agree. I think some folks had commented if Janae Rice, Ray Rice's now wife, if she had been a white woman, this would have been a very different situation.
Oh, God, yeah.
I would agree wholeheartedly. his court case would have been radically different. It probably wouldn't have been a situation where he was not charged and people are sitting around pointing fingers trying to explain. I'm real certain there would have been some convictions and totally different scenario if that had been a white woman, which only for me further reinforces that unbalanced power dynamic and why these tragic arrangements, sex with a white person, is never, ever a good idea as long as this system exists. Fascinating. It might be interesting to have you back on the program down the road to check out some of the other aspects of how things have evolved with your whole experience doing work or talking about your book and what have you. I'm sure folks would have other questions who listen to the archive. So we will.
Can I plug a couple of things? I would love to come back on the show because I think I will be a better person when I come back on the show.
Can I get a request before you plug? You had offered to send me your book. One person wanted to read it, and I can't send them my Kindle. Can you send me that link so that I can get one more person? I sure will. Okay, go ahead and make your plug.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I don't want black people to pay for my book. I want white people to pay for my book. And then I'm going to give that money to black people because we try very hard to get rid of power imbalances. It's not possible. Like, I can't do it alone. So we're also trying to, so please read The New Jim Crow. It is, to me, that's where we can make a difference. That's where I personally can make a difference. My husband can make a difference. The other thing is, go to FergusonOctober.com. We're going to do a big thing the weekend of October 10th. We're going to go back out there, do what we can. I don't know what we can do. There's a group of kids who are sleeping in tents, black kids. I call them kids. They're college age and post-high school, friends of Mike Brown's, who say they are not going to go back home until there's justice. So they're living in tents. You can find that we met them when we were out there, solid people. I think, they're not going to be on a show like Melissa Harris Perry because they do not express themselves in a way that is media ready. But what you have to remember is it's their lives that are at stake. It really is. And so go on Facebook and look up Lost Voices. They have put together a little group. They sleep in tents. They're out there every single night protesting, but they're called Lost Voices. Please support them. We sent them some money. They need money. Not trying to say that I'm the greatest. I'm one in a million because I sent them some money. I'm just saying every bit of support we can give them because they are the leaders of that movement, not Al Sharpton, not Jesse Jackson. They. So please check out Lost Voices on Facebook, read Michelle Alexander's book, and please, we can educate our children about the system, but I really believe that the movement is coming. This is the new Montgomery. Ferguson is so critical, and we've got to end stop and frisk. We've got to ban the box, and we've got to overturn mass incarceration. We've got to legalize drugs. We've got to decriminalize addiction. There's so much work to be done, and I just feel so positive that this is the time. And any feedback, if y'all want to leave feedback on Gus's link in the comment section, tell me what I can do. I want to do it. I'm trying very hard, and I'm going to be trying very hard to educate white people. Tell us what we can do. We want to know. We know it's not your job to educate us, but we really want to be better and do better. We do, I swear. So, okay.
She swears. If you give me that link, because like some of the folks did want to read the book. These are black people. Yeah. I will let them know that you will be interested in feedback, and I'm sure they will read and they might even be willing to do so. I will pass it on for the folks who would like to read The Wheat Money. You can hear some of the anecdotes that I read, as well as some of the other portions that I also highlighted, which are pretty interesting as well. I'm trying to sneak in our last caller before we wrap up. The caller at 9498. Did you have a quick question for Miss Krystl Tyler? Your line should be open.
Hi. I was wondering, can you hear me now?
That's better.
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering if you wanted to know how to help us or help blacks, if you could just go to whites and kind of, instead of focusing on the blacks, just focus on the whites, because you have so much information. If maybe you could just focus on informing
I know.
the whites. I'm sorry, say it again.
That is my goal. I am trying. I say in my book, this book is for white people. You don't have to convince white people things have been unfair. That's pretty clear. But white people, we tend to, and I know y'all don't believe. I've heard Gus say, I don't buy it. They're not ignorant of how the system works. I have met you underestimate how arrogant white people are. White people believe that everything they've done is all by themselves. Like, even people in my family, and I'm like, bitch, you got weed money. You didn't do any work. You have not, that land was free. I know what our parents gave you. So it's just crazy to me that white people can be like, well, I worked really hard, and I don't appreciate having stuff taken out of my paycheck for people who just want to sit around and watch big screen TVs. And I'm like, you worked really hard. Are you forgetting your entire 20s where mom totally coddled you, paid your rent? Oh, my God. If anybody was on welfare, it was you. It was mom and dad welfare. So I'm trying. I want to educate white people. I want to so bad, and I'm trying to get my name out there. And I didn't, reach out to Gus and say, please put me on your show. It bothers me that so far I'm getting a lot more attention from black people. But I'm really hoping that this is gonna, that I'm gonna get the attention that I need from white people to get people to read this and say, oh my God, I was so wrong. Because if I spent my whole life trying to be, when I watched Roots in the 4th grade, I was devastated. I could not believe that we had done that, And so I feel like I've been aware all my life. And if I've been aware all my life and 3 years ago I say I didn't know anything, I had no idea what we did, no idea how bad it was, no idea about the GI Bill. I had no idea. So if I didn't know all that, white people have a lot to learn. And so I put in the time, I put in the work, I read all those books, I did my research. Now, if they want to learn, I have given them the easiest, cheapest way to get up to speed on all the stuff that white people have done wrong. So I'm asking them, please just read the book, please, because you don't know as much as you think you know. So I'm trying, and I appreciate that advice, and I think you're exactly right. Absolutely. My job is to educate white people and say, if you don't know this, you don't know enough. You don't have a right to even call yourself an anti-racist if you don't know the history of this country.
Well, do you think they do know the history and they don't want to give up? Because if they counteract racism, then that means you'll give up everything that you have from... I know.
Right. No, I'm trying. I know that seems like the weirdest thing. And, okay, so I make good money because I have a career as a computer technologist. But you would not know that we make good money. We live in a very small house. We rent. We give as much as we can. It's an ongoing experiment right now. But I have read people who say socialism really is the only way to fix this kind of, and I don't mean a formal socialism, but I cannot be intent on getting rich and say that I'm trying to undo white supremacy, because that is part of the problem, like the American individualism and all that. And I read the writings of Karenga, the guy that founded Kwanzaa, and how he talks about collectivism. And did I say his name right? It feels weird right now, Karenga, right? Anyway, I know that materialism will be a problem. But my husband, of course, having grown up poor, is very materialistic. Like, he's like, we need a house, we need 2 nice cars, and I'm like, no, we can pay cash for old clunkers, old Subaru. We live in a very small house, and we give away. Here comes one of them now. We've got some homeless people who live in our garage coming in to use the bathroom. We give away. We have people living with us. I'm trying to redistribute my own wealth. But I also want to give it to people that I think will use that to catapult themselves forward. So I'm trying, and how we get rid of our money is, like I said, it's an ongoing experiment. I'm trying to figure out the best ways to do it. I don't want to found a charity. We know enough black people to hand it over to them as cash, not found another charity where white people make themselves feel better about stuff. So I don't know. I know that I'm not one in a million. I know that I fail every day, and all I can do is keep trying. Sorry, I didn't want to cry because I know the whole thing about white women's tears.
Amen. That's we will let you compose yourself and get it together, because that is a big no-no. You cannot be a white person and come cry in front of black people. We talk. I
know. Look, I'm better already. Look, my daughter's in here checking on me. I'm crying into my phone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We will let you compose yourself. Thank you for sharing your time with us. It has been a hoot. As I said, if you could shoot me the link for the book, folks would appreciate reading it, and we will definitely look forward to having you back on the program to continue.
It's a Google Drive document, and it's supposed to be anybody who has the link can read it, so you can spread it. My only request is don't spread it to white people. They need to pay for this.
Right on.
And they need to pay for their education, and then we will figure out a way to funnel that money forward to the right people. So sorry that I cried. And let me know if it doesn't work. Give me feedback in the comments. I do want to grow. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Right on. Again, Krystl Tyler, the book, The Wheat Money. For folks who want the book, just let me know and I'll email. Just let me know and I'll shoot you an email. You can email it to me. Just let me know. For anybody that's listening, black folks, we will hook you up. Thank you, Ms. Tyler.
Sounds
we will
good.
be in touch. And
all right.
Man, oh man, we'll let you know.
Okay. Bye.
Evening. Context of White Supremacy. Woo! Man, oh man. I will take a quick 30 seconds, and then if folks have any comments they want to get in before we wrap things up. I think that is a first for a white person to cry live on the program, or at least state that she cried. She could have been pulling one over on us, but that was way more than I could have endured for a day on the plantation. We'll take 20 seconds, and then if folks have anything they would like to get in, quick commentary, we will wrap things up in about 12 minutes. So be thinking so you can have your thoughts, quick, concise, what you would like to get in. Context of White Supremacy. We will be right back.
On one in a million chance of a lifetime, and life show compassion and send to me a stroke of love, all to you. A one in a million you.
At any rate, we make an effort to keep the broadcast G-rated. I did not prompt her about the language because that's the way I would rather have it, where black people are being calm and courteous, and you allow white people to do all the name calling and be crude and all of that. Plus, I thought that just revealed a lot more. Her referencing in the book, referencing black females as bitches and what have you. I thought that just made things even more clearer about what is happening here. So, and I appreciate everyone who called in and participated, not following her lead and getting into a lot of profanity and unnecessary. Just keep it professional, business codified at all times. I don't remember who the person was. I tried diligently to find who first heard of her book and said, you should make an effort to get her on the program. I try to give credit when I can, if I remember, because sometimes I just forget. People make a lot of requests, and sometimes it takes a while to get the guest on the program. But I think it was sometime in either July or August, and I couldn't find it. But thank you to that person. I think this will move to the top of the list for programs on why sexual intercourse between white people and non-white people is horrendous every time, all times, no exceptions, absolutely horrendous. This will be right up there with Soothing Lotion, Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. and the White Privilege Conference. The video, I didn't even get to bring it up. I thought there were two, because she's in Aurora. I was going to ask her about the shooting. I don't know if people remember the theater shooting, the White Knight terrorist, James Holmes, summer of 2012, July, when he shot up that theater. That was in Aurora. That's where I was going to ask her about that, because the mall where that happened at, they had a whole report. You can read it. It's by Alice Hines. It's Aurora Shooting, Mall's Troubled History of Racism. Where they were talking about white flight. White people didn't want to go to that mall anymore. They considered that the nigger mall in the town. I was going to ask her about that, but I knew it was a lot to get to, and I wanted to make sure listeners got a chance to try to get in as many questions as possible. But that I thought was equally important. I wish we had got that in before. And that's hopefully we can get her back on the program, and I'll be sure to bring that up. But at any rate, if you check on Facebook, and I guess I'll just go ahead and post it so people can see. But if you look on Facebook, there's a video with Miss Tyler. You can see her husband and her daughter. It's pick up the new Jim Crow and the Wheat Money, and make sure I get in Michelle Alexander. She does have a white parent, significant as well, I think, and why I think that is a part of why white people are so thrilled about her work. But if you check the video, the comments, I mean, you can hear what I played the sound clip from the video at the beginning. It's the comments. How many black people just, oh my God, white savior. This is the one most wonderful white person ever. This is a black person. He commented, he said, this slightly restored my faith in white people. That's one of the first comments. The next one, that's one brave woman. And it just goes on and on. And it's not everybody. Not everybody was duped by what she had to say, but it was a lot of black people who saw this and just overjoyed. Another Tim Wise, this is fantastic. This is a white person who is not racist. And I really feel like that, for me, just further illustrates the level of work that we have to do in terms of getting a better understanding of racism, white supremacy, and not being fooled by these white people. I don't know what you all's opinion was, but from what I heard, that right there lets me know a lot, that you can have someone like this, what she says and what the presentation that we heard, that you would have black people who would think that this is 21st century John Brown. That is, wow, we have a lot of work to do. I meant to ask, I'll write her. I was going to invite her husband, because even if that's what he did, even if he came on and it was, you all are the worst, uncouth, good for nothing Negroes ever, even if that's what he said, fine. He's a victim. I understand maximum racist aggression, but that would be important too. That would further illustrate this is what happens. This is what you can expect when you lie down. Pam the Great. You lie down with white people, you cannot get up and fight racism. And that should not be minimized or understated. She said in her book, she compared her black male husband victim to Malcolm X. And she said, this guy's chilling. He is not doing anything about racism. She even says in her book repeatedly that he rebuffed her when she would try to talk to him about racism. And when she was reading books, Warmth of Other Suns or Slavery by Another Name, he didn't want to know about this. He would even get upset when she would try and tell him about the history of things that white people had done to black people. And he did not know this information. It wasn't like he didn't want to know because he already knew this. That wasn't the case at all. He just had no interest in hearing about this. That's very standard, but I will do that. I will offer an invitation if he wants to come, even to curse at us and tell us we're no good and whatever else. That would be fine too. That would just further documentation about how massively incorrect this behavior is. We will wrap in 10. So hopefully the people that are on have concise comments, things that stood out, things that they want to make sure that they share before we conclude. I will mute my line.
This is Lashes. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Her behavior reminds me of the guest you had on a while back about narcissistic supply.
And Bachman.
Yes. Narcissistic supply, that's what it sounds like she was looking for, and she got it. Because she kept saying, I don't care if you like me or you do like me. But no one ever said on the show that we liked her or we didn't like her, so why she kept bringing it up? It was just bizarre. Just narcissistic supply all around.
She says that over and over in the book as well, about wanting that approval from white, really all non-white people, because she has incidents where she was around so-called Mexicans and Latino, other non-white people, and it was the same thing. She wanted their approval. She wanted them to think of her, and she has this in italics. She wanted them to think of her as a good white person. You're not like those other white people. She wanted their approval. She uses the word approval, acceptance, praise. She over and over and over again in the book that she wants this from black people, and when she doesn't get it, then we're bitches and everything else that you heard in the program, particularly black females.
And her behavior also ties into your suggestion last night on the program with your guest from 2010, Zach Casey, where he states that that all white people are basically white supremacists. That's what white means. And that those who are white supremacists even want to appear to non-whites that they're not when they really are. So she was a prime example of that, everything he laid out too in that program.
I just think that I don't think she's serious about my work against racism, white supremacy, and I don't know, it kind of throws me off. Like, again, like I said, if you know how the system of white supremacy would affect your offspring, why would you bring your offspring into that situation, knowing that they're going to be victims of racism? That kind of, I don't know, that makes no sense. Kind of throw me back into that book, too, about Mr. Williams' book about how his mother, said she wish he could, go back and not have them or whatever because she don't want them to be victims of racism like that. Not in them exact words, but I don't know, I'm just making an accusation. I don't think she cares about her daughter. I don't think she cares about her daughter at all. It's some little, like a puppy to her, or some little prize where she can flaunt around like a purse. But I don't think she cares about her daughter because she knows what she subjected her daughter to, the system that her people created. And I mean, my line. And yeah, the fact that the other thing I want to mention is, another thing, they think we supposed to, black people, we're supposed to be, how you do, ma'am? Oh, you're so great. We're supposed to make you feel so comfortable. We don't supposed to be skeptical of them at all. We don't supposed to criticize them at all. Everything they supposed to say, amen, hallelujah, praise the Lord. That's all. That's why she took that as abuse, in my opinion. I mean, Milan.
And Gus, another pattern I'm starting to notice is with these tragic arrangements is that the white participants always throw the non-white participant under the bus. I'm beginning to see that pattern over and over again.
Man, I'm going to be quiet so the other people can go get their colors in, but there are so many parts in the book. Man, she talks about her black husband. She says, this is a direct quote, "I was hoping he would die." Crack addict, right? That's at the beginning of the book. He was having relapses and going back to prison and what have you. And she said at one point, she was hoping he would die. That way they could just paint whatever fantasy narrative about him no longer being there and just move forward with their lives. They wouldn't have to continue to deal with this. She said at another point, she had just already concluded that he had nothing constructive, positive that he could contribute to their child's well-being. And then she goes on to have a conversation about how he's telling her exactly what Colin Alabama brought up. If she dies, me as a black male, I will be her parent, her sole parent. She'll have to stay with me, and she will be totally ill-equipped to function because she will be accustomed to you, white woman, suspected white supremacist, sheltering her, coddling her, doing whatever you can as an empowered racist white supremacist to confuse her about the world that she's in and what she's going to need to do to survive as a non-white person who is going to be mistreated by whites all over the place. And she said she acknowledged the truth of that and allowed him to share more of his thoughts and what they could do to try to balance that. But prior to getting to that, she admits that she had already concluded he had nothing constructive that he could give to their daughter in terms of parenting. And she talks about him as a project. To your point about seeing us as dogs, which is exactly what I said about the gay white man, Kevin Fisher Paulson, who was on the program, that he had the same perception of his adopted non-white children. She references him as her project. And she talks about this regularly, how she would have projects to make her life difficult, to try to make it seem like she was a victim and she was not like the other racist white people. So she would get a really bad house, or she would go stay in a homeless shelter for one night as opposed to getting a hotel when she had the money to do so. Plus her parents had a lot of money too. But she references him as her project, and she says that she could cure him. I thought that was fascinating as well. I just didn't bring that out, but there's tons of that in the book if folks want to check it out. I'll mute my line.
It seems like she has her stake is the black woman, like, because they already love the black man and desire him, but it seems like her issue is the black woman, so she gets this, oh my stars, Dolphin, you know what I mean? So she gets this guy that we're not really starting after, and you do whatever, and then you call him a project. Then her words, she used very specific words. And it was always something with the black woman, and then her sister has one. It sounds like her sister has older children with black men. And like, well, she wants one too, and then she's already not the most attractive to a Caucasian male because they're very funny. And someone asked, well, how come you don't date Caucasian men? And she did all this stuff. But she was basically saying, because I can't control him. So why would I date him? She wants somebody that she can control just like he wants somebody he can control, and she don't want to be controlled. So you get somebody that you're controlling. Yeah, they're going back and forth and stuff because she's practicing racism against him and he's saying little stuff, but he's completely confused, especially if he's still smoking crack. So her thing is with the black woman, and she's going to have a better daughter than you, and, she knows we have issues within ourselves with the weave and all that crap. So now I have this, and she's better than yours. You know what I mean? Because she knows she can't take that mulatto child in the white neighborhood and her still feel superior. So she keeps the baby in a certain setting just so she'll be, and then her best friend is white, but then her other best friends are black and funny eyes and all that. So she has an issue with the black woman, because I can tell when she was talking to the black woman callers, they started losing patience with her. And then she gets to jiving around and throwing, she turns into the victim. Oh, they're just victimizing me. Oh, poor me. Oh, they're so mean. And then when the black guy, he's not as aggressive with her. She thank you for being nice, like all the other. And then it's like, well, it's a trip how they go pull it back into victim mode. The Caucasian women is to be the damsel in distress, all while knowing what you're really doing.
But she also said that the white male is weak, so I still don't buy that explanation. So I just think her behavior was it was just confusion, madness, insane, bizarre, crazy, psychotic, narcissistic supply, definitely.
Anything else folks want to get in before we wrap things up?
I just wanted to say that lady started crying. That's when I knew she was just clowning. You know, just that's all I want to say. Just crying. I don't understand. Triple T.
Absolutely. That, I don't know if that was Lashes or one of the other females. Were y'all going to say something?
No, that I said indeed. Tacky, trashy, and terroristic.
We're all good, everybody. Oh man, I didn't see the other folks. The people that the other folks that just got a hand up. Let's get them in quick so we can wrap things up. The other people that dialed in with a hand up, your line should be open.
Hello, Gus.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Let's get the female first. I can hear you as well, sir. Let's get the female first.
Okay.
Okay, is that me?
Yes, ma'am.
That's me? Okay.
Yes,
I'm sorry for calling so late. I was going to call, but it was different things that you said, and I wanted to just comment. And the first thing is I saw the video on YouTube, and I'm like you. That's what made me, I listened to it, and just all the comments. Oh, my God, you know, this is her, she's telling, and I looked to the video, and I wrote my comment, and I'm like, she isn't saying anything that you don't know, that you if you're black, that you don't know, that you should know. And so, I mean, I was just astounded by that. And that was the first thing. The other thing I think that really stood out to me, two things, was she said, what, I just wanted his DNA. That stood out to me. I mean, it's like the sun just blew up in front of my face. Because I think that's what it's all about. She wanted his DNA. She has his child or his children. And the other thing is I'm thankful that Nash asked the question, because when I first saw the video, I'm like, she's a college-educated woman. She has all this stuff going for her. And she married she married a black man who is a drug addict with felonies, who's in and out of jail. And I just couldn't seem to understand. And I'm thinking, why would she, first thing I was thinking, would she marry a white man in that state? And I'm just like, no, I don't think she would. And then I couldn't understand, why wouldn't she marry a white man? And when Lashes asked her that, all the craziness in that, and she said to her mother, says, well, you got to walk around, like you're walking on eggshells. But then the other young lady just said that, oh gosh, that's why I took my tongue. What did she say about, she wanted somebody who she can control, and it just seems that she got that. And here's my last statement. I said Saturday on the commentary call. Last week I was listening to a YouTube video by Dr. Nadia Africa. He said white supremacy is mental illness, and I don't care if that woman sounds like she is just crazy, just mentally ill. And I don't mean it to be just, people say they're just crazy to just, they're just crazy to go on with it. They're just mentally ill. I'm just listening to her. She was just all over the place. But thank you for the call, and thank you for taking my call.
Gus.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to say, I was the guy that called in earlier, and that whole commentary from her just seemed so twisted and distorted to me. It was a prime display of jungle fever at its most distorted concept. I would have liked to hear what her husband had to say and his views on the relationship, because it appears to me that black people who are in those types of arrangements seem to be hypnotized and mesmerized by the idea of being in a white relationship, and for the life of me, I just can't understand it. And one other thing she mentioned, too, was the incident where she threw the rock at the glass, and it reminded me what Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said, that all a white woman has to do is scream rape, and the black person would be put in jail. And that was a good example of the neighbors seeing her, I guess, or what they thought of her being attacked by this black man, and they just immediately took the defense on her behalf, the white policemen, the white women who saw the incident, and that was a real good example of racism, white supremacy at its finest.
Do you think that the tragic arrangements by non-white with white perpetrators has something to do with lack of self-respect?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
I do.
I think
Absolutely.
when under this system, I mean, I can't keep reading that Frantz Fanon quote, but I think he hits the nail on the head precisely, where we get decimated with regards to having value for ourselves, having value for anything associated with black. So how can I possibly redeem my humanity? How can I possibly redeem any value in my life and who I am as a person? A white person. And a white person willing to have a child with me? Oh my gosh! I mean, that is like I could read that again. It's the blog post. I think the blog post I wrote about Elliot Rodger, because he had that same obsession with wanting to get a white woman, and same problem: racism, white supremacy. He was not validated, no self-respect. He didn't value himself as a non-white male, so-called Asian male, even though he's not black. And he wanted a white woman to validate him, and he couldn't get it. I think absolutely. I think that is a massive part of it. And the sad thing is that these relationships just further decimate your self-respect, because now you've been totally compromised with this racist in the worst kind of way. I mean, you think that this is going to be the zenith in terms of resurrecting and helping you to validate your humanity, and it is the exact opposite. It's scandal every time. It's Monsters Ball every time. Dr. Eddie Moore Jr.'s soothing lotion every single time is the exact opposite. And that's why you can get him saying he wants to come on and tell us to curse us out and talk bad about us, which is even wild, because I wanted to hear what he had to say too. She had said originally, when we were talking about having him on the program, she said he was interested in coming on to speak. And she said that was strange because he normally doesn't want to participate in these types of discussions. And I said, that's fine. You know, he's warmly invited. That would be great. And then I guess after maybe she played some programs that we did so that he could hear, you know, whatever was said. And I mean, that right there, you see the black self-respect where he is attacking other black people and she is viewed as the good white person, the militant. But I understand that too. This is the meal ticket. She's the one that's making the money. I mean, sad all the way around. Yes, it's self-respect is crucial in that with regards to why we pursue these tragic, terroristic arrangements. And it just further, I mean, it is the final straw in the total decimation of your self-respect, in my opinion, being in these relationships, particularly if there's a marriage, child, just... I think she said that he was making bad comments. Was it in front of their daughter? He was making bad comments about black people. So that just further shows the lack of black self-respect.
And I totally agree with you. My thought was, because I thought the arrangement was so twisted and distorted, what is the life of that child going to be like with someone of her mindset and her husband's mindset? To me, it just is a painful thought to think of what the child's life would be in such a tragic arrangement.
In Colorado, no less. I don't think there's a whole lot of people in Colorado. I've been to Colorado. I haven't been to Aurora, but particularly in an environment that I suspect probably has a high amount of white people. I'd have to get the demographics. Hopefully we can get her back on the program. But I think, I cannot imagine a child having a very high opinion of black people with a father that she wished was dead. I mean, I'm curious if he even read her book. Like, I don't know I don't even know what my thought process would be if I was in that situation, much less, but to read that and see the things that she says about him. And even knowing that that's not true, where I'm being compared to Malcolm X, and I'm not about social justice at all. I'm chilling. She writes in the book where she's complaining about him being on the computer playing video games instead of looking after their daughter. I mean, at any rate, fascinating. Fascinating. Hopefully there will be no issues, so the archive will be up with immediately post haste. It should be no more than an hour, I think it takes for it to load, and it should be available on iTunes and all the other outlets. The program from yesterday, there was a problem with the network, and I was not able to upload it immediately, but it is up now. So if you had any problems, or if you were trying to get what happened with Debbie Irving, should be available. Woo! I would say this is one of those very good to hear sequenced, to hear Debbie Irving and then hear Krystl Tyler today, where you get to hear two white women and just compare and contrast. Fascinating sequence of programs. I will also get in my plug where she talked about books. Reading, more important than television, able to read both of these books cover to cover. I think this book is about 400 pages, and Debbie Irving's book is about 250 pages. Read both of those and half of Richard Williams' book in about 7 days. Reading is more important than watching television, and to get that in, just doing these programs, I do try to be prepared. I think that is much better, particularly for a program like the one today, reading her book and getting all those comments that she made about black females and interracial. I seriously doubt that that's something she talks about a lot with other people who haven't read her book. I could see a lot of other victims just being caught up in white savior. This is a wonderful white person because she's talking about racism, so, we just love her to death, as opposed to reading and critically being suspicious in reading her work and digging out those details, particularly the way that she talks about black females and her black husband, wishing he was dead. Anywho, we'll be back on Thursday. Dr. Charles Todd, he did a dissertation soon to be published on these groups of white people. I thought it was older white people. I was wrong. It's young white people in their 20s, white people who are in gun clubs organizing to shoot and kill black people. They see black people as an impending threat. He went and interviewed them, and that's what he wrote his dissertation on. He should be with us on Thursday. Normal broadcast time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We should be here Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Gus,
Monday. Hang on one sec. I think Dr. Missy Harris, she should be here on Sunday, the black dentist that we were talking about, where she quit her job because they were spying on her computer and they didn't like her commenting about racism on her Facebook and social media outlets. That should be Sunday. And I think the black male in Sweden should be with us on Monday. We're just trying to get the time because it's such a big time difference. But the New York Times just did a big post on the quote-unquote right-wing surge in Sweden. And they were even talking a few weeks earlier about removing the term race so that people don't use that term anymore and they don't collect any data on race. We're just a part of the human race, so we don't talk about quote-unquote racial differences anymore. There's a very important, I can't say his name because I don't want to butcher it. His last name is Sabuni, I can say that. Black male, he's in Sweden. He should be with us on Monday. That program will be very early because there's a 9-hour time difference between here and there, but we should be here every day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, actively rolling towards the end of September. Quick question before we conclude.
Okay, I was just curious as to why you were so surprised that there was these young people who had guns that were interested in killing black people, because my thought is racism is ongoing, has been in place as long as I've been alive, and why would you not think that it is continuing to be a evolving process? So when you said you were surprised that these people were young, I was kind of mind-boggled by that, because my thought is it doesn't matter what age you is. There's still white people who are firm and assured to teach their children white racism behavior in this day and time. So when you said that you were surprised that these were young people, it kind of took me by surprise with the information that you have collected. And as long as you've been doing the show, why would you think that young people would be any different?
It's not that I think young white people are any different. I think anyone who's been following this program for a while, I've said that consistently, that is just not true. folks remember the broadcast at San Jose State, those were teenage whites who were calling a black student 3/5 and fraction and nigger and beating him. Those were teens. I point to that regularly, as well as the high school and other illustrations, even in her book where she talks about what they were doing at the high school level, saying that, hey, you're a white girl in a relationship with this black boy. You are white. You call the shots. You tell him what to do. So it's not that I think they're different. It's that when I see reports where they're talking about these militia groups and white people who are getting their guns and they are taking the country back and they're upset, it's generally older white people. It's generally people like Clive and Bundy that they try and say are doing this. Or someone who is in their 40s, 50s. I cannot think of any image where it's been people in their 20s, young 20s. I don't think I've ever seen a report or an image where it was all young white people who were going out and getting guns and saying, yes, we have a problem with black people. I think that is extremely important because most of the people that I'm in contact with, they don't think of young white people as being racist. I do, but that's not, hang on one second. That's not the perception. The perception is that it's Clive and Bundy, it's Paula Dean, it's Donald Sterling, and once these people die out, this won't be a problem. I think I've said pretty consistently that that is not true. That's just what it means to be a white person. I was surprised and grateful to get another illustration that that line of thinking is incorrect, so that we get another example of young white people who have the exact same behavior, the exact same mindset. So it was not that I was in a state of disbelief. It was just this is a deviation from what I'm accustomed to seeing when this issue of armed white people gets discussed, if that makes sense.
Okay. Because I was thinking about, and I don't know if you saw this in the news just recently about the young,
Be brief.
The young officer who was teaching this young white girl how to shoot a gun, and he accidentally shot her.
Right.
He accidentally shot him and killed him by accident.
Right.
In my mind, when I saw that, I thought that there's something more going on there than the news was reporting. Those white people are teaching their young white people to learn how to use guns and shoot guns, and not for the fact of protecting themselves, but being able to kill black people.
Absolutely. It's tons of that. And I think when we talked about that incident, it was in that vein that white people are very comfortable with 12, even a lot of the reports that I saw, it wasn't like they were saying, oh man, we can't have this. It was a lot of white people who were defending having young people out shooting, and they even had some firearms experts and white people who owned gun ranges saying that they had policies where they allowed, they're talking about white people to come in with their young children and learn how to shoot firearms with no problem. That definitely, that should always be thought about in context of they're preparing for us, dark people, black people, to come get us. But yeah, that should be Thursday. Dr. Charles Todd, I am looking for his thesis. I mean, his dissertation it's not even published yet, so it's not publicly available, but should be down the road. But it'll be good to get that information and how he got on this track in the first place. But that's Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the broadcast. We will be back soon. If you have any confusion, problems, I know some people were a little confused with the archive being off, but that should be corrected. If you have any issues, just drop me an email. Invest if you think the program is constructive. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. Listener supported, counter racist.
Q&A session is over. Q&A session started.
We will be back again on Thursday. If you have any concerns, guest suggestions, problems, drop an email and we will get in touch immediately. On Twitter as well, @UntilJustice. Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of racism. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Help us remain diligent, focused, and suspicious of our enemies. Racist child, racist woman, racist man. Help us understand whites are eternally dedicated to terrorizing black people, non-white people. Increase our skepticism, increase our suspicion, increase our understanding of what it means to be white. Help us call on our ancestors to supply us with maximum Black self-respect at all times in all areas of people activity and every interaction that we have with another Black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. Context of White Supremacy signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
I'm a victim, brother.
No problem. You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.